Fallout New Vegas is a tumbleweed simulator from Obsidian Software Warlocks Incorporated, who managed to make a better Fallout game than its predecessor. And if you don't think that's true, or I've somehow misled my audience, let me introduce you to Fallout 3, a game that tried to show us what life as a cannibalistic humanoid dwelling underground might look like if it took place exclusively in DC subways. My journey with Fallout New Vegas starts like this. So I go into GameStop one day and I go over to the one shelf that is now reserved for PC games, and next to a box set of Warcraft 3, which was in turn next to a box set of Diablo 2, was a new game, Fallout New Vegas. I didn't even know it was coming out. I wasn't that into games at the time, but I was really into Fallout. So I snapped it up eagerly, and when I got home I opened the box, and instead of finding a disc, as was the custom at the time, there was a code printed on a label in the place where the disc should have been. This game that came in a box was nothing more than a Steam code. Wow, what a bamboozle that was, huh? And here I was thinking I was buying a game, but how naive. I was, in fact, simply buying the rights to a game. Okay, not a great start, but it was a new Fallout game, so I told my brain, "Don't you ruin this for me. I never make you do anything that you don't want to do, so don't screw this up." Then I waited for it to download off a DSL connection that was on the cusp of too far away from the access point, and sometime around midnight, I got to play it. Bethesda's logo came up, then Obsidian's, and then it came up. The Desert Ranger looking fly as fuck with that music playing. I literally just sat there looking at the screen for at least a minute or two as my mind instantly went back to those fairly recent memories of Fallout. The fact that I never thought I would actually get to play another Fallout, and at this point I had not only gotten to play Fallout, but I got a new sequel, and the original guys, at least most of them, were handling this new one. It felt like there was finally justice in this world. They managed to take the same kind of mashing together of genres that they did with Fallout 1 and Fallout 2, and they managed to do it again. This time they smashed together post-apocalypse with a Western. Very literally cowboys and Indians. The ideologies might not match up with the two groups, but the aesthetics do. And I understood all of that just from watching the intro of this game and seeing that main menu. The music, the graphics, it all worked together so perfectly. Where things began, so shall they end. I mean, when you think about it, the Fallout series is a friggin' hero's journey. The game series has a character arc. I started up the game, saw Doc, created my character, stepped outside into the blinding light, and then it crashed. I think we all know the story behind this game. Obsidian signed a ridiculous contract to have a shot at an IP they helped create in the first place, and then got screwed out of their bonus by a single point discrepancy in their Metacritic rating. That's right, Bethesda kept that money. In fact, it's shit like this that actually kills companies, so yeah, Bethesda almost killed Obsidian. New Vegas ended up shipping 15 million copies all said and done. So that's a lot of royalties that Obsidian got screwed out of. And all of that is the reward that you get for hard work, kids. Remember that. Do the bare minimum. Trying only leads to failure. And what'll really boil your fucking yam bags about this whole thing is that they did all of this in 18 months. That's right. They only had 18 months to do all this. And when we get further into this video and we start talking about some of the crazy things that they actually tackled in 18 months, you'll be very impressed by this number, I assure you. Fallout New Vegas is a game that, in my opinion, changed the way RPGs got made. I mean, the pacing, the pseudo-linear nature that can be easily sequence broken without the pacing breaking, emergent gameplay possibilities. Hell, after 2010, it felt like RPGs required an open world to even get made, and those that didn't got forgotten and tossed in the rubbish bin of history. That's why Dragon Age Inquisition was Inquisition and not Dragon Age 3. EA didn't want the stink of Part 2 to tarnish the polished cat turd that was Inquisition. Fallout New Vegas was able to take what everyone loved about the original, ISO game that kids nowadays think is poison, and make it work inside of a terrible game engine. So as a result, the gameplay holds up very well, and it is an experience that I highly encourage anyone who likes video games to try because it works for so many different types of gamers. Fallout New Vegas is a gateway to more mind-expanding products. So if you're worried that this game drives like a 1990s Ford F-150, worry not, my dudes. This game's got an automatic transmission and everything, and it only breaks down once you try to peg the gas. So without further delay, let's figure out how to New Vegas, shall we? First off, this shit was not easy to get running. Sure, it'll start for you and you could probably play the bitch that way, but you don't want to, trust me. I got special circumstances. See, I'm coming off of a fresh install of Windows, and goddamn does this game need a lot of help getting its old ass up these steps. My old install had a year or two to age like a fine wine. It had everything it needed for Fallout New Vegas' geriatric ass to get up them steps, even had one of them wheelchair escalators, but this shit, well, First, it was the audio. I was on stream and people were like, why's your audio screwed up? Turns out, the game needs you to install a bunch of codecs to make the music play without sounding like it's coming out of a hand radio. So, I installed them, played the game, and everything was good. For a while. Then I played for over an hour and once again, audio stuttering, and I didn't even notice it because I kept the music turned down when I played. I didn't notice it until I got to Nipton. Maroon! So I did more research, and someone suggested reinstalling FFD Show from SourceForge, a fresh install later, and the game ran fine. Until it didn't. I noticed that the longer I played the game, the worse the audio stutter seemed to get, so I hesitantly decided to reinstall the anti-stutter patch. Then everything was good again. For a while. Then the bitch started crashing again. So, if you find yourself in this unpleasant position, don't worry. I found a fix. It's called NVTF, or the New Vegas Tick Fix. Just like NVSR, it removes the microstutter, but it's more targeted at the actual problems and plays nice with Windows 10 and modern hardware, so it doesn't make the game crash all the time. A must-have mod indeed. After I installed it, I found that I was smiling more at dinner conversations. About 10% more, which is a big increase because it used to be 0. If you never played this game before, you might be looking at it wondering how you can play it without your eyes spontaneously combusting, and you've got a point. This game looks tired, like it had the worst night's sleep ever, the kids woke them up fighting at 6 AM, and what the hell were they even doing up that early in the first place? Then it got called into work because Lucy, this dumb bitch, can you believe it, she called out. So long story short, Fallout left the house without waxing its mustache. And that's a less abstract way of describing the look of this game than you think. It's got bags under its eyes, is what I'm telling you. Mass Effect 2 came out around the same time as this game, and yet, every single female model in that game is totally fuckable. I mean, look at these ladies. Whereas these models, well, shucks, mister, I don't know, I'd kiss you, but it looks like your upper lip might tickle me a little bit. This game is a game that was focused on the open world, the characters, and a flexible story. I mean, this game is bendy as hell. If you were to ask me, does this game fuck? Yes. It does indeed fuck. But we'll get to that soon enough. This game is ugly. There, I said it. It's a product of a weird time in game development where studios were getting better and better at this whole graphics thing, and Obsidian was stuck making a game in 2010 on an engine that looks like Afghanistan in 2002. But not to fear. I'll not rest until this game no longer rapes your tender, moist eye socket. First thing we need is the 4 gig patch from Nexus Mods as well as the New Vegas anti-crash patch. Yes, there's a patch that's supposed to stop this game from crashing, and it seems to work almost 100% of the time, so this makes the experience much more bearable. Because this game vanilla, holy shit does it crash. It crashes all the goddamn time. But don't touch the anti-stutter patch because you don't want it because it just causes more crashes than it's worth. Like, what the hell's the point of this thing?
Don't waste my motherfucking time!
Then you're going to want to install the New Vegas script extender, which you'll have to do that manually, and it's as simple as extracting it to the game directory and running the patch. I used Mod Manager 2 to manage the rest of my mods and found it worked really well. So I suggest it for your modding pleasure. The next mods are some graphical enhancements. To be honest with you, I never really liked modding the graphics in this game because it never really quite fits the way the vanilla game does, like with the NMC's texture pack. In some ways, the textures look better, and in other, more subtle ways, they don't. I think that this comes down to a personal preference thing, and I prefer to not mod the graphics. But if you're looking at this game like there's no way I can play this like this, then you want to mod these graphics. It's just at me that it looks very uneven. In fact, I realized that I have this very old sentimental attachment to the old graphics. I kept asking myself, why do I hate this? Oh my god, what did they do to you, Easy Pete? So I ended up uninstalling it all, scrapping my install and repatching everything and just played it normally because, as I said, this is one of those games I have really fond memories of. I form bonds with the way things look, and really, I like it when a mod keeps the essence of what is the original and just bumps up the resolution and detail in the OG textures. I don't even want more polygons at times because it'll too drastically change the silhouette of the characters. Have you ever felt this way, or is this just my autism flaring up? I only recommend these mods to newbies, people who haven't tried the game yet, because the quality of the graphics might be a turnoff for you, and if they are, understand that my gripes are not with the quality of the assets, but with the way that they're applied, and it's all informed by an old bias. For example, the retexture can be hit or miss, but when it hits, it's really nice. Like in a gas station here. The original game had these oddly clean looking textures for the metal overhanging structure, but the retexture rightly slaps on some rust and makes the place a lot more believable. Also notice that with the rocks they have a less gray tint and are now more red like clay, which is more fitting for the setting. But I honestly don't recommend these mods for anyone who remembers this game fondly because it always fucked with me that someone would want to change something that was this cohesive environmentally. I mean, sure, the NPC models are iffy sometimes, but that's the charm of the game for me, because those graphics never took me out of the game, no matter how janky they looked. If I'm being honest, I feel exactly the same way about Morrowind. Then we come to the question that everyone's likely asking, which is, will he be playing Project Nevada? No, for a couple of reasons. I personally feel like it changes the game way too much for this format of video, and the point of how-tos are really to tell someone how to enjoy something that they may not want to play and make it palatable for current day tastes aesthetically. Trust me when I say that Project Nevada is a must-have, if you can figure out how to install it, that is. It adds a ton of quality of life stuff, and when I play for fun, I play with this mod. Before we get started, we need to acknowledge the voice acting that went into this game. See, we got Chandler wearing a Daisy suit, we got Hellboy doing
War. War never changes.
And Spike Spiegel doing additional voices. That's another way of saying he voiced about 50% of this game's characters, including the really old guys that sound nothing like they're old.
Well, it happened at night, around 11. We'd recently made some caps off a bit of scrap we found and wanted to invest it wisely.
Felicia Day is Veronica and Dave Foley plays Dave Foley.
You blew it up! That's just funny because that army seems like a secret weapon that was the whole point of, you know...
I'm just kidding. Yes-Man is the best character in the game, if I'm being honest, but I think it was a bit of brilliance casting Matthew Perry as a 1950s wise guy because his voice just works for the role. But he also put a little stank on it because I couldn't even tell it was him at first when I first played the game. I knew he was in the game, I just couldn't place him. He's sort of lost in a role, which is a good thing. Fallout New Vegas has a lot of things going for it, and one of those things is the intro cinematic. It's full of epic moments, like when this guy says the thing we all know he's gonna say.
From where you're kneeling must seem like an 18-carat run of bad luck. Truth is, I wish I was dead.
So Chandler Bing steals the platinum chip, puts a bullet in the spot where my skull used to be, and I wake up in a house I don't recognize. Then a man with some mighty fine face decor tells me to simmer down before he goes out and gets a switch.
Whoa, easy there, easy. You've been out cold a couple of days now. Why don't you just relax a second? Get your bearings. Let's see what the damage is. How about your name? Can you tell me your name? I can't say it's what I'd have picked for you, but if that's your name, that's your name.
What?
He hands me a big clunky ass mirror that acts as the character creation screen, and I set out on this journey with this goofy ass character generator to make a human version of Paulie Walnuts, which isn't all that easy because Paulie isn't exactly a spring chicken.
So shut the fuck up about it.
But for some reason, in the desert, all aging seems to do is make it look like Droopy Dog going through dialysis. And this game does that super special Bethesda thing where one slider changes the shape of the entire head, and my god, is it ever fun trying to work with this shit. You move the forehead and the goddamn chin disappears. Shit's nuts. Eventually I got Paulie to resemble the Paulie in my brain, but I was unfortunately unable to acquire white streaks in my hair, which is some bullshit. I think somebody needs to make a mod for this stat. Anyhow, I locked in my changes and Doc walks me over to the vigor tester, and this is where we enter in our ability scores. Now I want to preface this whole thing by talking about the character creation in these games. I really do hate it. I hate that it takes you through a multi-step process that's disconnected from previous processes in order to enter in things that affect derived stats that you have no insight into because they're not shown on the screen. The original Fallout had everything on one screen, and every time you updated one of your scores, the derived stats would update as well, and you could see everything, so you didn't have to wonder whether or not this thing that you were investing in actually worked. Which is a real concern because there are stats in here that say they do things, but like Elix, don't actually do those things. So just like older iterations of the game, you got 7 ability scores, you got 7 derived stats, and 13 skills. I won't go over everything in agonizing detail, so here's the quick lowdown. Strength is important for melee damage, carry weight, and melee weapon skill gets a bonus to its starting percentage and can go as high as 20 points. And each attribute acts this way, and which attribute you concentrate on can at times be dependent upon how you play. For instance, agility is only really important for people who plan on using VATs, or for those who want quick attack speed bonuses from the Slayer perk. Because unlike popular belief, agility does not increase your move speed. It affects your sneak and guns ability and the speed at which you pull your weapon and the time it takes you to reload. If you were to take, say, revolvers as your weapon, then pick up rapid reload with a 10 in agility, you get an 87% faster reload time, which is really important when you're loading those bullets in one at a time. But charisma and perception, on the other hand, are sorta useless for us, and in general. For charisma, the reason is the lack of charisma-based dialogue options. Speech is more important, and charisma is only used in a handful of conversation options and not worth the investment because it does nothing for you. It doesn't increase the amount of companions you can have, but it will increase your companion's damage and defense quite a bit, but honestly, that's only important if you're doing a gimmick build. But there are mods out there that make charisma much more useful in game, like making it so that not only can you have more than one companion, but the limit is dependent on how much you smile and how much teeth you show when you talk. Perception, on the other hand, doesn't increase your accuracy in VATS, so I never take it because it doesn't affect anything terribly important to me. Sniper is a decent perk, but if you're not using VATS, again, it's useless. Perception does affect how far away we can see our enemies on the compass, which can be helpful, so if you're concerned with that, take the 4 Eyes trait, pick up glasses in Doc's house, and the sheriff's hat soon after. You'll have 4 in perception, which should be fine. In general, you want to rely on your eyes that you have in your actual real-life head to spot enemies. So let's take a look at my build. I took a 6 in strength because it's the minimum we need for certain perks, but we'll be getting this up to 10 with intense training and implants because the higher our strength, the more damage we do. I could have went with a 9 to start, but a low starting strength is not that big a deal for what I was going for, so I kept it low. Perception isn't important for this build, so dump it. It doesn't affect accuracy in or out of VATS, and the only way that it will be negatively affected is in the range we see enemies on the compass. A 5 in endurance is the minimum we need to get the toughness perk, and the toughness perk we will be getting. But since this is a melee build and we'll be spending the time picking bullets out of our skin, having a ton of hit points is helpful for surviving big fights. Again, charisma is a waste of points for our build, and depending on who you ask, the entire game. So, in the interest of min-maxing, this is a 1. According to many sources, there are no charisma checks in the vanilla game or DLCs, so the only thing it does is boost the strength of your party members, which could be useful on modes where they can die. Intelligence is important as it allows us to get extra skill points each level. You can go higher than this if you want. In fact, an Intelligence 8 will give you access to all the dialogue checks associated with that ability score, of which there are a lot in this game. You could do that with an Intelligence mod, however. Agility will be needing at a 7 for the Slayer perk, and even though we don't really need agility for this build, that one perk makes it necessary. If you rely on VATS, maybe agility is important, but I'm going to advise you against using VATS in hand-to-hand. It's suicide in a lot of fights because it makes you stand still, and if you're not using the side and back power attacks to knock people down or disarm them, then I don't know what the fuck you're doing with your life. Luck is for critting. Also, a high luck is required for succeeding in a high-stakes surgery later on in the game, so that's nice. But what we really want luck for is for the gambling. A luck of 7 will allow you to get kicked out of just about every casino in the game for winning too much.
Okay, that's that. No more games for you. Go rob the tops. You're done here.
Once we got our skills dialed in, Doc Mitchell sits us down to show us some ink blots and asks us a bunch of stuff about our personality, and these decisions act as the initial choices the game thinks would be good for our character, and instead of using those, I tag speech, unarmed, and explosives. I'll be concentrating on the following skills as I level. Unarmed is our primary attack skill. We could do all kinds of neat shit with this, and every unarmed weapon has a different kind of modifier on it that determines what kind of damage it does. For instance, did you know that the boxing glove and the boxing tape can render someone unconscious for almost an entire friggin' day? You can knock people out faster than you can kill them, so imagine going through an entire room full of really hard enemies, knocking them all out, and then throwing a big stick of dynamite on top of them and watching them get blown up. It's fantastic. Melee weapon. I'll be trying to get this up to about 45% before we get to Camp Searchlight. There's an axe there called Knock Knock that has knockdown chance, and a perk that we can get at level 8 called Super Slam that we're really going to want. We'll still mostly be using our fists, and the perk works for both unarmed and melee, so it's a flavor kind of thing. Knock Knock is a really good axe though, don't sleep on it. Explosives. Now you might be thinking, why explosives? And I ask you, why not? Explosions put an exclamation point at the end of whatever you're trying to communicate to the enemy, and when Knuckles fail to get the point across, a stick of dynamite will slam its fist onto the table, demanding the room's full attention. Sneak. We'll be trying to sneak as much as possible, but honestly, this build is pretty versatile and it focuses on mobility. Sneaking is for the big boys that won't go down to a single uppercut. Those guys require that little extra oomph that comes from a sneak attack critical. Now speech, this is for role playing. Paulie's not very charismatic, but he knows how to bullshit people. There are a ton of speech checks in this game, and this will help us get some of the better dialogue options in the game. Repair, we'll be using this a lot to patch up our armor and our weapons, so this is a must-have ability because we'll be using it a lot. Now you might be thinking I'm going to talk about the next stat, but instead, it's a surprise self-promo! That's right, folks. Subscribe to my channel, leave a like, hug a kitten, spank your kids, then head over to my Patreon. A consistent channel requires consistent funding, and Patreon helps me keep this channel going, so every single dollar adds up to a lot.
I'm the guy talking shit about your favorite games. Fuck you!
Thanks! Now throughout the game you're going to get perks, and there's only a few perks that are absolutely necessary for this build. One of them is the Piercing Strike. It's a very important skill for this build because it will negate the damage threshold, which is a problem pretty much throughout the game. So any armored opponents, rad scorpions, things like that, 15 of your damage will bypass damage threshold completely. So it's a very important skill, but so is toughness and intense training. I usually try and take intense training and get my strength up to 9 and then get it to a 10 either with power armor or with upgrades. You can actually take this to 8, get an upgrade in town, and then get the power armor, and that'll bring you up to 10 anyway. So I would say use intense training to get up to 8, take maybe 2 rounds of toughness, super slam at level 8, intense training again if you wanna, really up to you. Like I said, if you're not gonna use power armor, it's probably good to do that. You can also take purifier at level 14, but honestly, I didn't do that. Instead, I ended up taking a bunch of utility stuff, but then at level 24, the most important perk in the game is Slayer. You get it if you have an unarmed of 90 and a strength of 7 and an agility of 7. This will give you a total of 30% extra attack speed, which is insane. Take it and never look back with regret as you become a creature with buzzsaws for fists. And then there's a bunch of unarmed perks that you get just for playing the game. So for instance, there's a scribe counter, and you get this by giving Veronica something girly to wear. It works by blocking a melee attack and then hitting attack right after. It's a counter and it's pretty damn useful. The Ranger takedown allows you to perform a takedown move that knocks the opponent down. Now you get this by helping out that gimpy Ranger in Novac. And what it does is every time you use a backwards power attack, you'll knock somebody down. And if you're in the third person camera mode, you'll see that the move is actually a sweep. And it's actually easier to hit in third person. So this move ends up becoming a very reliable way to crowd control. And you get it basically for free. And then there's Beautiful Beatdown, which gives you a discount to your AP cost to unarmed attacks. And all you have to do is cost 10,000 damage throughout the runtime of the game, so you basically get it for free. Then at the end of all this, you'll get 2 different traits that you could pick. Heavy-handed and loose cannon are the traits I picked, but it's really up to you. Built to Destroy gives me a total of 12% crit chance, but the weapons I use degrade 15% faster. But to be honest, it feels more like 30%, and if you don't feel like dealing with that mechanic, especially since there's not like a million fist weapons like there are varmint rifles, just pick heavy-handed, or nothing at all. It's up to you and your playstyle at the end of the day. I went for loose cannon because at level 4 we'll be taking a perk that'll negate the throwing distance debuff. After that, Doc Mitchell will wait patiently at the door for us to rob him of every single thing in his home, including the last thing his wife ever wore before she died, because fuck it, why not? Like Gunny always said,
If it wasn't for dickheads like you, there wouldn't be any thievery in this world, would there?
he's got to do a better job of locking his shit up. Throughout this section, you'll be given opportunities to do certain things, like repair a gun, but if you didn't take the repair skill, then you won't be able to fix it until later. The point of these activities is to give you a very tangible reward for investing into certain skills. Like repairing the gun gives you a 9mm submachine gun for free early on. The same thing happens in conversations, but these can't always be come back to later. So for example, in this conversation, it seems that Paulie might be drunk because I think he might be asking to perform a sex act on him, but unfortunately we'd fail that speech check, so we'll never know if we could send Doc Mitchell to the moon or not.
I guess you could call that a dick.
There's a lot of speech checks in the game, but speech is not the only thing that matters. There are intelligence checks and dialogue as well, and nearly every ability score has a dialogue choice associated with it, including low intelligence, which I've never done. Doc Mitchell is a good person to talk to if you want to get a rundown on all the important people with your shooting. He mentions Victor, a robot AI that you'll see wandering around town. So Doc Mitchell gives you a lead, you follow up on that lead, and it ends up leading you into a side quest. And this side quest is basically training. It trains you on how to use the weapon, how to use VATs, how to kill things, and so on. And if you already know all that, you could skip all of this.
Howdy, partner. Might I say you're looking fit as a fiddle?
So on the way over to the bar, I talk to Victor. I thank him for pulling me out of the grave and saving my life.
Don't mention it. I'm always ready to lend a helping hand to a stranger in need.
But what I really need to know is who shot me in the head.
Can't say that I'm familiar with the rascals. Some of the fine folks in town might be able to help you out with that.
Everybody saw something, but nobody saw nothing. Typical. If you ask him something about himself, we get a strange piece of dialogue.
I moseyed into town, 10, 15 years ago. Before that, I can't quite seem to recall. Odd. I'm a Securitron. Robco Security Model 2060B. If you ever see any of my brothers, tell them Victor says howdy.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. Have a nice day. Rat fuck. Easy Pete is a fine example of what the team at Obsidian was able to do at Gamebryo. While most of the characters in this game look just a little off, his character is fantastic looking. His face has the texture of an elephant foreskin, which is exactly the kind of texture you'd see on a face that spent most of its life wandering the desert, salvaging gear for sale. Pete doesn't like to call it that, though.
But never liked the term. Way I see it, salvage means it's broken, near worthless. Me, I look for the good stuff. Guns, chems, spare parts. Good money in it.
Pete is a great source of information, too, because everybody's got their opinions on the faction war going on and the people participating in it, and those opinions vary, except with how people feel about the Legion. That pretty much is unanimous.
They're slavers, led by a guy named Caesar, or Caesar. Not sure how you're supposed to say it. A couple of years ago, they tried to take over Hoover Dam, but the NCR beat them back. The NCR didn't or couldn't finish the job, though. The Legion's got its strength back and is getting ready for another round at the dam. My money's still on the NCR winning, but you never know. We've been hearing stories about legionaries on the Nevada side of the river, so keep a gun handy. You don't want to get caught by them.
The first major choice you get to make is about which faction you side with. In a lot of games, this choice might affect the rest of the game, but not here. This game lets you pivot at certain points, change your mind, turncoat, whatever you want to call it. But for role-playing, we need to make our choice now and stick with it, and that choice is, which brand of asshole do you want to side with? The kind of asshole that's come to steal your water and divert it to a desert where people really shouldn't be living at this point? Or some with assholes wearing football pads? The obvious answer is the Legion, because this is strategy, right? And I only do melee builds. I mean, sure, you could play as NCR and do hand-to-hand, but come on, it's a lot more fun to cosplay as radical desert terrorists, am I right? No, I'm not, but I'll get to that later on. For now, know that I want to side with House in this playthrough, and I'll justify it using my character's internal logic, aka role-playing. But I can already hear some of you complaining about the Legion and the heinous things they do, but this is a game. If this is your first time through, sure, kill the Legion, go for it, it's cathartic, but I want to make an argument that you should play through the Legion to experience the Legion from the inside. Caesar's Legion is none too fond of the women folk, but I think this might be a misinterpretation of what's going on over there at the Baseball Furies hideout. Caesar is a man with an abacus, taking stock of the human lives he has in inventory and placing them into roles. No matter how cruel, so long as the outcome will be favorable in the end, no sacrifice is too much. Caesar believes in what he does so much that he's able to treat people as chess pieces, sending children and men alike into a life of certain death like a passionless demigod, while using others like organic tools. The Legion, at the time of the events in New Vegas, is in a bad place. They're a backwards lot considered by the Wasteland as the worst type of savage, offspring of conquered tribals. They're Legion, for they are many, and because they are many, they harry the NCR without relent, and that's their only power, so they have to be careful how wasteful they are with their soldiers. Caesar's vision for the future is a modern-day Rome, with New Vegas at the center of it all. The place where Rome will rise again! But short of finding a supply depot, the Legion are without technology that they need to fight off the NCR once and for all, and this has forced Caesar to take a form of brutal calculus like any dictator would in this situation. Caesar's form of brutal, extreme functionalism is what gives this faction depth, because it's not what is said that matters, but the internal canon that forms around what is said. For example, let's look at the life of a typical child in the Legion.
I'm harsh on the children, but they'll be excellent legionaries. I'm quite proud of them.
Run faster, or I will throw you off the side.
A child is born into the Legion from a slave. This slave was either born into the Legion, like the boy she just birthed, or she was kidnapped by the Legion and turned into a slave. But all women in the Legion are slaves. She's livestock, essentially, used to create more fighting men and more breedable women. She's even traded to men of the Legion as favors and rewards for well-fought battles. It's a way to keep up the morale of the slaves, for the men of the Legion are also slaves. A slave that must be motivated to fight for something other than the love of his god king. Kaisar can fix two problems with one solution: keep the fighting men happy and replace them when they die. And if you just so happen to be born gay, well, wipe your dick off and get back to work. You got child quotas to meet. Oh, and don't let Kaisar know, because he's gonna have you killed. At least that's the scuttlebutt, but the Brotherhood knows it and Cass knows it. The Legion mount their chamber boys as much as they mount their women. The law is only there to punish those that turn against Kaisar, using their law as an excuse to punish those that Kaisar finds to be a threat to his power. It's the same reason he has his own bodyguards fight to the death. It's a way to control through fear. You never know when it's gonna be you. Well, let's get back to the pregnant woman. She can expect to give birth to a dozen or more children in her lifetime. When a child is born in the Legion, they're taken from their mother, who will likely never see the child's face and wouldn't recognize it among the several she's already had anyway, and this child is raised by another slave woman, given the role of priestess. The priestess of Mars is a teacher of sorts. She's there to teach these children to worship their one true god, Kaisar. The cult of Mars believes that he was chosen by Mars to conquer the earth and to deliver the wasteland from the savageness of the untamed human spirit. The child is taught that these dictates, like women being for breeding and men for conquering, was handed down to Caesar as commandments from Mars. Kaisar is merely the enforcer of God's will. Forced ignorance through punishment is enforced as well. You know, a slave only knows what a slave is allowed to know. Because after all, the boy is a slave. He was a slave the moment he was born, even if he didn't know what that meant yet. Now pretend to be this boy for a moment. In your adolescence, you've seen many horrors. You've seen children your age executed, men impaled on spikes. You were even forced to cut out the tongue of a slave who was teaching another slave how to read. You learned that nothing but pain is gained from standing out, so you become a ghost, blending in, never rocking the boat, keeping to the program. Then one day on your 16th birthday, your training is put to the test against a traveling band of scientists from the Children of the Apocalypse. You return with 2 sets of ears your first day out, and before you could process the battle and dwell on the look that one man gave you before you cut his throat, you've been called into the Inculta's tent. You've performed well. To reward you for your valor, the Inculta has given you a breeder for the night. It's here, for the first time, that you start to associate the thrill of battle with the pleasure of sex. You spend a dispassionate night with her, never knowing that this girl was your sister. I mean, how could you know, after all? Because you don't have a brother, or a sister, or a mother. You're a slave. A slave has nothing. I know that some of you out there are big dicking this shit right now, like, yeah, yo, I would like stand up to Kaisar and tell him to suck my dick. No, you wouldn't. Shut up. Kaisar is the type of guy to be having failing kidneys hooked up to a dialysis machine, but still be able to give a dude. So before you go getting all judgmental, put yourself in those shoes. Imagine what it would be like to be a child in the Legion. From the moment you were a child, you've never known anything of women but as slaves, breeders, filament for the system. To imagine them as anything else is like seeing your own shadow outside the cave. Take you from your mother and teach you about the greatness of a man you've never met, be brought up to believe that he's an all-knowing godling, then imagine confronting the idea that things could be different. You're taught that these people that you've killed, all of this blood that's on your hands, it's just the blood of liars, whores, cheats, cowards who act behind your back. To think of them as anything more than slaves who don't wear chains yet is absurd to you. Confronting that you might be a monster is an inevitability. We'll all think about that. But believing that you are is unlikely. It's a way that the system separates you from your mother, your sister, and your family and make you and everyone around you a slave. It echoes reality, and that's why I like the Legion. Not because I want to be a member, but because it's an extreme version of the subtle Legion that we're already a part of. The point of all this is that people often judge the Legion as if they're all complicit in Kaisar's evil, but they're victims of it. And when you look at it like that, you could justify what they're doing in a typical lawful evil way by justifying the evil if it civilizes the wasteland, which it does, unsurprisingly. I mean, these lands are awfully free of raiders, don't you think? And I mean, yeah, they got an enclave, but they're boxed in, nearly irrelevant. You're welcome, Kaisar says. So another way to look at what the NCR is doing is killing slaves, nearly defenseless. defenseless slaves, oftentimes teenage slaves. When you see Nipton burned to the ground, you might be aghast at what you've seen, but the NCR is gunning down literal fucking kids every single day. You see, it's easy to sympathize if you try to empathize with the individual you hate, instead of judging the individual by the society that created them. You'll realize that this shit isn't the individual's fault, it's society's fault. Garbage in, garbage out. Educate or mutilate. It's that simple for the NCR. So maybe you might play as a Caesar fanboy, and then at some point, you maybe have a change of heart because of the Legion's abject cruelty. Maybe it's the mission where you have to destroy the Brotherhood of Steel. Whatever the case may be, you're likely to want to render your fist into Kaisar's fat fucking head. But that's kind of the point of the game. There's not a single faction in this game that appears at the end that you can't, in the last moments, betray. You are not stuck with any choice you make, and as such, the longer you work with each faction, the more you may come to dislike them, so the developers left you an escape hatch. This faction system is one of the best that I've ever seen, and I really just wanted to highlight it. The problem is, none of this is canon in this game. I made up that story based on what the game tells me. It's my internal canon. It's what the Legion says they do, but isn't being shown doing. There's a severe lack of show don't tell in the Legion storyline, and it's a huge blemish. Instead of a faction with depth that defies the expectations set by the rumors you've heard, we have a faction that's essentially camping tents and people standing around in an infinite loop like a place time forgot. They are the least developed faction from a design standpoint in the game, and that is by a football field in length. They missed the mark by a fucking mile. Imagine a Legion with the kind of stories above. Like you have a mission where you have to help a pregnant slave escape the Legion with her child, or punish her for abandoning her post. That is what the Legion could have been if Obsidian had enough time to actually finish the fucking thing, and Bethesda wasn't trying to get the tip in while they were picking up groceries.
Don't get me wrong. The NCR's got a lot of decent folk in it. It's just that they make you part of them whether you like it or not. Towns like Goodsprings and Primm don't stay independent for long. Not if you've got something the NCR wants. Still, the NCR keeps the Legion away.
Now to the other major faction vying for control of your attention, and that's the NCR. The NCR is modeled after the old world, placing values on American-style democracy, which, I mean, is that even real? They've been expanding from just Shady Sands to take over territories in Oregon and Nevada, and because of this rapid expansion, they're plagued with things that sound familiar if you're only slightly paying attention. Vast corruption scandals, loyalty issues, desertion, and so on have stymied the NCR, and now they're on the verge of losing the Hoover Dam, which would effectively destroy all hope of a foothold in the desert. Tell me if you heard this before. They're expansionists, putting their hands in all kinds of pots, overextended, short of resources, corrupt, and the continued expansion is threatening their entire empire. And to make it worse, the people of the Mojave have their gripes with the NCR. They believe that they're treading the same soil as the imperialists who came before them, and that led to nuclear war. But to talk fully about the position that the NCR finds itself in, we gotta look at its past. And we got two people that we need to look at, Aradesh and Tandy of Shady Sands. If you don't know who these people are, check out my Fallout 1 video, or better yet, go out on YouTube and look for Fallout 1 analysis. Anyone on this platform has a better video about Fallout 1 than I do. Anyway, Aradesh was the top man in charge of a small town called Shady Sands, just west of their original home, Vault 15. And if you played the game, you would have stumbled into and met Aradesh and his daughter, Tandy. The game canon states that Tandy was kidnapped by raiders, and the Vault Dweller came to her rescue and liberated her. He crushed the original cons and drove them out of the surrounding area. Shady Sands became an agricultural powerhouse, and as such, their food and resources were shipped all over the desert. And as a result of all this trade, Shady Sands became powerful and influential. Meanwhile, the cons were moving further away into the Mojave to lick their wounds and gain back strength, after having been defeated twice and driven from their homes. The NCR was founded by popular vote in 2186, and 3 years later, the NCR expanded into 5 Union states. And with the acquisition of the Hoover Dam, the NCR had a steady supply of water and electricity. But then, President Tandy died shortly after, and that's when things started to take a turn for the worse. See, President Tandy was what you might call a bit of a bleeding heart, and because of her benevolent nature, she was loved by her people. And I think she's even quoted as saying that the Vault Dweller inspired her with his or her actions.
Lord, that was a long time ago. Hardly remember who I was then. just a naive girl. The one you call the Vault Dweller. Is he still alive? Yes. There's a resemblance. You've got the same fire, too.
You've got some freaky DNA, and I want to see what's in your genes.
I was always afraid that he was nothing but a skeleton somewhere in the desert. Figures. Well, I was pretty young when we met.
One Mother's Day 70 years ago, the only man I ever loved walked out on me.
There was a gang of raiders, the cons, who had gotten hold of me. Things were looking pretty bad when all of a sudden this stranger shows up and rescues me. Your Vault Dweller. I used to envy him that.
Some snot-eating bastards say it made me a bitter woman.
I wanted a life of adventure, but I stayed here and took over as mayor when my dad died.
Before I die, I'd like to be Supreme Overlord of Earth.
Been running this place and building NCR ever since. Guess it turned out to be a pretty big life after all.
Now I'm off to some charity BS for knocked-up teenage sluts.
And as such, she was a champion of the downtrodden, and under her leadership, the people of the Waste enjoyed not just subsistence, but a measure of quality of life. Then Tandy bites it, and President Aaron Kimball comes around and without a vote or agreement of the people, annexes New Vegas.
I'm an equal opportunity ass kicker.
This gave rise to the Legion, and as a result, locked the nation into a long, protracted war with a savage group of murderers. The NCR really fucks the cat, and with good intentions and all that jazz, goes into Bitter Springs and fucking annihilates the Great Khan's men, women, and children alike. The scandal of it spread, and the NCR were forced into a politically tricky place, being that this is democracy, and you can't just do what the Legion does and take the family dog out behind the shed and shoot it. You have to act diplomatically, so they allowed the Khans to resettle so long as they super serial promised not to be raiders. There was a pinky swear and all that shit. Regardless of all of this shit, farmers, traders, and businessmen keep flooding into the Mojave to get in on the gold rush there, and as they do, money leaves the hands of the NCR and ends up in the pockets of Mr. House. This, along with the threat of the Legion, is the reason that the NCR's power is waning in the Mojave. That and the complete and utter military incompetence of their leaders, including General Lee Oliver, whose decision to amass a center of power at the dam is draining resources from the soldiers who are trying to protect the settlements from raids and hostile wildlife of the desert. Basically, everything that the NCR resides over is in a state of disrepair. Primm so understaffed that the NCR can't handle a few criminals and the town gets taken over. Criminals take over a correctional facility and all of their dynamite, and with this incredibly powerful weapon, go on to harass and take over entire towns and surrounding industry. Nipton is just plain fucking gone. Novac seems to be holding on by the tips of their fingers, and when you stumble upon the NCR, what are they doing? Well, you find these young, outstanding soldiers of God's army standing around doing fucking nothing. They're so fucking lazy they won't even clean up the dead bodies they got laying in their bed. Camp Searchlight is a glowing pool of goo, and how did this happen? Incompetence. Sheer and utter laziness and incompetence. The Legion should have been gunned down by turrets, but the turrets weren't working. But that was after the communications went down a few weeks prior. This place was crumbling before the Legion even got here. Then you got the smaller factions like the Brotherhood of Steel, Nightkin, shit like that, and it's all very good, but the NCR and Legion is where it's at. When you look at a game like Fallout 3, you might ask yourself, what's new here besides the gameplay? And you would find very little, but New Vegas has something to show you. They had the best writers and creative minds on this project, and it really does show. Interacting with these factions is easy because it stems naturally from exploration. You will, before you reach the strip, run into several members of each faction, and by the time you get to the strip, you'll know if you like either of them. Then it's just a matter of seeking out folk who need help in either faction, either at the NCR forward operating camp or a base of ops, like with the Legion, an empty town they just liberated. You find the leader, ask for work, do the work, become well liked. Just like they say about hard work in the real world, except here it actually works. Now where was I? Oh yeah, Goodsprings. Once I entered the bar, I'm accosted by a dominant-looking type with a baby hair mustache.
Cheyenne, stay. Don't worry. She won't bite unless I tell her to. Yeah, I guess there's a thing or two I could show you. Sounds like you need all the help you can get after what they done to you. Meet me outside, behind the saloon.
and if you agree, she'll give you a free weapon and some ammo. And if instead of shooting the bottle, you drop the ammo at her feet, then tell her you lost all your ammo, she'll give you more. Perception check failed, am I right? I knock the bottles down with my bare hands and deal with them. Execution style, if you know what I mean. If you do her whole quest chain, you'll get EXP and supplies, and it's very much worth the time, but when you come back to the bar, there's a surprise waiting for you.
I'm done being nice. If you don't hand Ringo over soon, I'm going to get my friends and we're burning this town to the ground. Got it?
We'll keep that in mind. Now, if you're not going to buy something, get out.
What the hell is your problem?
Well, you've been causing quite a stir. Glad I finally got to meet you. Welcome to the Prospector Saloon. Looks like our little town got itself dragged into the middle of something we don't want anything to do with. About a week ago, this traitor, Ringo, comes into town. Survivor of an attack, he says. Bad men after him. Needs a place to hide. We figured he was just in shock, so we gave him a place to lie low. We didn't actually expect anyone to come after him.
No one ever thinks extinction's coming for him until it does. That's what positive thinking gets you. And how the hell has this Cobb guy not found Ringo yet? It's not like there's a whole lot of room to hide.
Cobb hasn't exactly been looking for Ringo too hard. I think he's afraid that Ringo will ambush him, which is probably true.
Ah, I get it, he's a coward. And God hates a coward, so let's go have a talk with this guy.
What do you want?
Hey, yo, ease up with the attitude there, Slick. I just want to ask you about that Ringo guy.
He's some traitor who decided he'd rather shoot than pay the toll for being in our territory. He's hiding somewhere in town. Would serve these idiots right if me and my guys shot the place up after we got payback on Ringo. None of your damn business. You ought to know better than to ask a man that kind of question.
I got a lot on my mind these days. I don't need this shit.
Ah! What the? There we go. Come on.
Give me a wallet, you prick.
Well, this narrows down my options a bit. Too bad the kid had to have such a smart mouth. Could have made some money together. But I don't imagine him and his friends will be too happy I murdered their bestie. So I'm gonna go and talk to that Ringo asshole and find out what I can get out of him. I can still goon for that guy at least.
That's close enough. Who are you, and what do you want with me?
Hey, you know that Cobb guy? I shucked him. Oh!
Thanks, I guess. Cobb wasn't the problem, though. I could have handled him if he ever found me. Cobb's friends are the bigger problem. And when he doesn't get back, they'll be coming here for blood. There's no way I can fight them all.
Ah, well, I think that's where you and I could come to an understanding. You see, I help you kill these powder ganger fucks, and you give me some cash. And we get out of this situation alive. What do you think?
We'd just end up sharing the same grave if it's just the two of us.
You saying I can't handle myself?
I was thinking of myself, actually. Who's gonna watch my back while I'm watching yours?
So this guy sends me back to Sunny Smiles, and without hesitation, she agrees to help us, as if the thought of killing someone was reward enough.
Even though Joe Cobb's dead, his friends will come after the town eventually. However, between you, me, and Ringo, we aren't exactly a force to be reckoned with. A lot of people around here look up to Trudy. If you could convince Trudy to join us, some of the folks in town might decide to help out as well.
Thing is, it still ain't enough. They got 6 people, we got 3. It don't take a genius to know those numbers don't compare. So I head around town trying to convince everyone to help us fight some guys that are only coming to kill us because I got mad, and if you can manage all 3 checks, you get the dynamite, leather armor, and a bunch of stims to help you on your journey. But it doesn't really matter because I have a way of making this fight fairly trivial. The best way to approach this fight is to run straight for him, don't delay, put the shirtless guy between you and this boulder here so they don't throw dynamite at you from that distance because that stuff really hurts real bad. I use the boxing gloves, even though the damage sucks, it knocks the enemy out. And when they get knocked out, they stay knocked out for a very long time, which gives you and your friends plenty of time to shoot at them while they're laying on the ground. This whole set of events can go differently, however. If you help the powder gangers take over, and I'm gonna be honest, Cobb is still an asshole, even if you help him take over the town, so I don't feel like that option is as satisfying as helping the town. At least that's what I thought, so I went and made a new character to see what the other side had to offer. His name's Teddy K. He likes nail bombs and writing manifestos, and the powder gangers are just his kind of people. Teddy K was not a fan of Goodsprings. It seemed too much like people were acting as society demanded, and people like Trudy were demanding what they expected themselves out of others, and my boy Teddy K, he's got some major problems with that. These weren't people to Teddy K, but puppets bouncing around their lives, happily acting as petroleum for the machines. So it wouldn't matter if someone, came and blew off all their body parts. I was pleasantly surprised by how much different the game plays and ends up feeling when you work for the Powder Gangers. First off, nothing much happens with Goodsprings, so every time I did this mission in the past, I just reloaded a save and did it the other way because it feels real bad killing Doc and Sonny and Trudy, especially Easy Pete. That was a tough one to take. But I never went any further than that with other playthroughs. With Teddy, I went all in and headed over to the NCRF.
Look at you. Walking in here like you're one of us? Don't you know this is Powder Ganger territory? Yeah, all right. Figure you could help us out the way you helped out Cobb's crew over in Goodsprings.
And talked to a guy named Eddie. Turns out this place went through a major makeover recently when the inmates splattered what used to be the warden all over the walls, the ceilings, and people's clothes haven't smelt the same ever since. It was a real mess. I like what they done with the place. It really screams down with pigs. So Eddie gives me a series of missions. One mission to kill a powder ganger out there doing some extracurricular work. I threw a stick of dynamite at him and called it a day, but then I noticed the guy had a dialogue option, a speech check. So I reasoned with the guy, told him if he didn't get the fuck out of here, I was going to make a ball bearing bomb out of his skin and mail it to his mother. We made Eddie happy, so now Eddie's going to make us real happy.
I've been thinking that since you've been good to us, we can be good to you. We've got plenty of spare powder and dynamite around. Say the word and we can give you some of it every couple days.
And there's nothing that Teddy K likes better than things that make you go boom. I got 2 more missions. The final one has me going to spy on the NCR and Primm, so unlike with people who sided with Goodsprings, if you go with the Powder Gangers, the game actually gives you a reason to go to Primm other than it's in the way. I get an option to talk to the NCR folk and ask them if there are any plans to, do something about that gang that's held up in the NCRF, and they'll stonewall. Something about operational secrets, so I go back to the residents of Primm and ask what the hell's going on, and this Nash guy has the balls to try and extort me.
I might know something, but my memory ain't what it used to be. Sometimes it needs motivating.
How about we see how far I could stick this dynamite up your ass and still be able to light it? Maybe that'll jog your memory.
No need to get upset, youngster. We're all friends here. I swore not to say a word to no one, but an NCR deserter passed through some days ago and traded for supplies. According to him, the NCR has decided enough's enough and is going to send in a mess of troops to take back the prison any day now.
At this point, Teddy examined his options. How's he going to stay alive working with a group of people who've got no laws, no code of ethics? What keeps them from turning on him one day and putting dynamite in his pocket while he's sleeping? So Teddy did the only thing he could do.
Holy shit!
He made a mess. And this is what I'm talking about with this game. The fact that you could turncoat at any time and betray the factions in a myriad of ways is what makes this game so goddamn fun to play. It puts the role in the post-apocalyptic role-playing game. If you go the other way with this, Eddie will say something along the lines of, well, you got what you want, so get out of here while you can. He basically gives up and just assumes you won't stick around to protect him, because why would he? His entire organization is built with people who only care about themselves. So if you turncoated on this guy, you'd be justified in doing it.
Hello there. It's good to see a friendly face. I almost took you for a raider, I did. Name's Malcolm Holmes. Don't suppose you'd care to trade. I'm missing a few essentials and, screw this. Lying just ain't in my nature.
That's a shame.
Grenade!
Because it's definitely in mine.
Give me a wallet, you prick.
Hey, where the hell do you think you're going? Primm is off limits. Some convicts from the prison up the road have taken over the town. Everyone inside is either dead or in hiding. What's more, there are 2 tribes of raiders causing trouble in this area as well. You'd be safer heading back up to Goodsprings.
Fuck 'em, baby.
It's your ass. Don't say you weren't warned.
There's a second group of convicts that escaped the NCRCF. They broke away from the main group after the riot and snuck into Primm under the cover of night and cut the fucking sheriff's head and his wife's head clean the fuck off, and are currently harassing and holding hostage the most useless fuck in the wasteland. Primm is a real place, in real life and stuff. It's like your typical Nevada tourist town, slots, hotels, and maybe even a hooker or two if you look hard enough, and by hard enough I mean go outside side. In Fallout lore, the town's claim to fame is a little casino called Vicky and Vance, and that has a knockoff Bonnie and Clyde car, complete with bullet holes and a robot sheriff-looking dude who's got corrupted memory that a science-y guy could fix for some lore. Right now, Primm has an infestation of assholes, and the way you clean them out is simple. You run up and boop, boop, boop the snoot until the guy falls down and goes boom. But before I did that, I went to the NCR.
We were sent out here to hold back the tide of convicts from the correctional facility.
And how's that been going?
As you can probably tell, we aren't doing the kind of job we could be doing.
Clearly. So, what you gonna do about it, Skip? Did you lose your balls in a sledding accident or something?
The mission isn't a problem. The problem is with supplies. The convicts are better armed and organized than our intel initially suggested. I'm trying to get some reinforcements here, maybe some guns with some firepower, but shit. Things are just going slow.
Exactly. You're a worthless piece of shit!
See, the thing is that I gotta get in there, and we got psychopaths with dynamite in there blowing people up, so I searched the town, found out that the deputy might be being held hostage, and well, he's the only asshole in this town that knows about daisy suits, so I gotta save this shitbird before the trail goes cold. But the NCR is, in the very early moments of the game, showing you just how incompetent they are, and it's not that the average soldier on the ground is stupid, it's the leadership. General Lee Oliver of the NCR forces is given one of the dumbest orders I've ever heard. He demands that all outposts in the Mojave divert as many soldiers and supplies as they can afford, and even more than that in most cases, and send it all to the dam to marshal up a large enough force to fight against the Legion. But in doing so, he's left other strategic resources like Primm and the NCRCF to fall at the hands of escaped convicts and have no plans to do anything. They're essentially watching the takeover of Primm, which seems ridiculous to Paulie. I mean, all you do is go into that hotel, dip some rags in paint thinner, put it up in the rafters, and make it look like an electrical thing. Bada bing, bada boom, you got yourself some dead fucking gangsters. But these NCR pricks, they got moral codes and shit, but we don't. So we blow the bastards to hell. There's probably a better way of doing this, but I prefer doing things this way. It's much more satisfying to knock a dude out or blow him up than the other methods. But what I can tell you is this. If you think that the risk associated with dynamite is not worth the results, well, a single stick of dynamite can kill or seriously wound an entire group of armored NCR troopers, while a gun can only kill one of them at a time, unless it's a really big gun. So whatever you do, don't sleep on explosives. Apply liberally to your enemy's feet.
I don't suppose you came here to rescue me. I'd cross my fingers, but my hands are numb.
Worry a little more about what you give me.
Well, I'm Deputy Beagle, and I'm being held hostage. Can you imagine? I'd be most grateful if you would set me free.
So shut the fuck up about it.
Oh, that's just marvelous. I think I'll be making my way outside now. The air's a little close in here.
We gotta be taken care of.
Oh, why, of course. I'd never let you fight my kidnappers with my help. Without it. You lead the way.
Paulie finds out that the daisy suit wearing prick already left and seemed to be heading south, taking a long route to the Vegas Strip most likely. Guy like him, with such sensible fashion taste, yeah, he's from the city alright. Before I left, I spoke to Nash, and this whole area is a great example of what this game does so well. Create a mystery about itself. There's a robot in this place that'll tell you about Vicky and Vance, the bandit couple who went on a bad check cashing spree across Nevada and died in a hail of gunfire that wasn't even meant for them. There is one memory, however, that's corrupted on the robot, and if you have a smarter guy than Paulie, you could fix him and hear all about it. Then there's the room behind the bars and the locked door, a wall of safes. How do I get in there? When you walk in here, there's so much to see, so much to know. They managed to pack a lot of value into a relatively small area. This Nash guy is a bladed gauntlet, which is amazing. Get it, and we can finally start lopping off heads. So after we free the deputy, we have another question that we gotta answer. Who's gonna watch over this town and protect it? Paulie's got three choices. He could get down on his knees, which are totally shot at this point, but with all the walking, and while he's down there, open the Vicky and Vance's robot up and reprogram him and be a heartless lawman. Or we could go find the sheriff that's currently a member of the Powder Gangers, and well, Paulie knows that ain't possible. He'd just end up killing everyone there. Our third option is the NCR. But if they take over, the town's gonna get taxed. 20% kicked up to the top just like in the mob, except they call it taxes. They'll protect the place, call it their own, and everyone on the payroll gets a piece. It's a real nice deal for the town and the NCR. But this limp dick over here in Primm don't make decisions. So we need to talk to someone named Knight over at the NCR Mojave Outpost. Way down south. Getting the outpost could be a little hairy. Lots of enemies on the road, some rad scorpions and ghouls off the road, just a whole lot of bad shit for you to deal with. But you could sneak up on most of these things and one-shot them, and there's a lot of good loot in these places. If you bought the bladed gauntlet, you'll be okay. Not even the rad scorpions at the gas station know what to do against a weapon that penetrates, so it's best to investigate and salvage what you can. A lot of these places have little bits of lore to help fill in the character of the world. As you approach the outpost, the first thing you're going to see is this big-ass statue made of scrap metal, and it looks like two people shaking hands. What this is supposed to represent is the people of the Mojave making a pact with the NCR. But what it really is showing the NCR taking the Mojave away from the people of the Mojave from the hands of the Desert Rangers, the people who were supposed to be the self-proclaimed protectors of the Mojave.
Those two? Represents unification. Mostly good for shade. Won't do much else when the Legion reaches us.
To understand a little bit better what the people of the Mojave have to go through when they actually ask the NCR for help, let's take a look at what it's like to be one of these people, right? So when these people need help from the NCR, they're told to make a dangerous journey across the wasteland to fill out some paperwork, just to get told that when they get there, they don't have the manpower to spare. The NCR rolls into town, attracts these fuckboy legionaries, and they're just letting everything go to shit because there's only one thing that they're there for, aka the only thing they care about, and that's the dam and the electricity that it generates. So yeah, when you talk to the people in the Mojave, they seem more like conquered people than, say, a desert full of free people. And that's on purpose, because this game isn't just about one group of slaves in the Legion, it's about the slaves who were recently free and have now become slaves again because a nation of people who had a lot of power and a lot of military and a lot of money stumbled onto something they really wanted in our lands, and now we have to give it to them whether we like it or not. Doesn't sound like something a free person would say, does it?
That's mathematics, son. You can argue with me, but you can't argue with figures.
I mean, the more you learn about the NCR, the worse they start to seem. A group of desert vigilantes needs help, so they take over an entire territory, and the people of the desert don't get a say. Sure, the NCR doesn't own the desert yet, but having an invading force setting up inside your own walls tends to have an effect on people who already live there.
Just need something for the logbook, keeping tabs on traffic throughout the outpost. Although mostly just in, not out these days. Also, if you need any gear checked, we can get you up and running again. Once you fill out the work orders and sign for the parts, of course.
Oh yeah, no, of course I gotta pay for the parts. I mean, why wouldn't I have to pay for the parts? Oh, and I gotta sign a bunch of paperwork too? Oh, no, cool. Yeah, fantastic. No, you know, I only use these weapons to free an entire town full of convicts that had taken over the town from a fucking prison that you guys just let go free. Yeah, but no, of course I have to fucking pay for it. Of course, I mean, what am I thinking? Of course I don't have to fucking pay for it. You know, your time's valuable. What am I trying to do to you here? Yeah, come on, give me the paperwork. I'll sign the fucking thing. Give it to me. And holy fucking shit, look at these prices. Are you fucking kidding me? What are you, plating the fucking thing in gold? This is why perks like jury rigging are so important, right? Because the prices are so absolutely ridiculous, and some of these items are really rare, so you won't be able to find a similar enough item in order to repair what you got. With jury rigging, you're able to repair your own items more reliably because you can use a wider variety of items to repair the weapon you're using or the armor that you're using. Now, as you walk around the town, there's going to be this air about everyone. I don't know how to quite describe it. It's not quite depression, but more like the next phase where you just decided, well, I'm not going to kill myself, so I might as well get used to feeling like shit, you know? Like you're just satisfied with the level of your life at this point, and you're like, it's never going to get any better, so fuck it.
Coming from the north? Must be crazy to brave those roads. Outpost. Mojave Outpost. Watching a lot of nothing feels like a big Brahmin pen for caravans.
Now check it out. This location is different than all the others because this place has a guy where you can repair things. And up to now, you haven't been able to repair all your equipment. You've had to get another piece of equipment to repair the piece of equipment you have. But this guy can bring this stuff all the way up to 100%. So he's really valuable, but he's also really stupid stupidly expensive, and you won't be able to repair all of your stuff, and you won't always be able to repair your top tier items either. But the fact that this is the first time you've run into a person who can repair your stuff is one of those things that New Vegas does really well. In a lot of games, having resources in a town is a gimme. You go from one town to another, and you can rest assured that the town will have at least one of each vendor or services available because it's just a decision that wasn't thought about. Like, no one stopped and asked, should all these places have one of each specialty, or should people of skill seem like a scarce resource? And New Vegas treats them as special, and therefore doesn't feature one of each in every town. In fact, some towns barely have a merchant to speak of, and that makes sense in a world like this. The population is low, so if specially skilled people are like, let's be generous and say 10% of the population might actually go out of their way to learn a trade when public schools don't exist, and most of the population can't even friggin' read, then 10% of hardly anything is even less than hardly anything. It's yet another way that this game pulls you into its world by never breaking the believability of the world it's designed. Next, we talk to Major Knight to see if the NCR can take over Primm.
Primm? Hayes units is stationed up there. We're having problems with some of the NCRCF convicts. What can I help you with? I'd like to help, but we can't spare any more units. We have to maintain a minimum headcount at the outpost. Orders from the west.
So we need a barter of at least 20 to get this guy to agree to send people to Primm, but Paulie's not too good with numbers. He's more of a people person. But I've got just the thing, because if I've learned anything from Andrew Carnegie, you know, the rich guy, it's that a smile will make an adversary a friend or some shit. I don't know. I need to get shit-faced.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Children!
I see the wisdom in that. I'll radio for a unit to head up to Primm and offer some additional support.
See, this here's the problem. You gotta convince these NCR assholes to do anything. You gotta grease their palms, you see, even the low-level guys. Now, I'm not a stranger to it, I'm just saying. I'm usually the guy getting paid here. This is all fucking backwards. They got a real nice racket going on here. While I'm at the outpost, I meet a real nice young lady named Ghost. She's got these young people eyes that can see halfway across the desert, and she noticed that there's a lot of smoke coming from the direction of Nipton, a town where the NCR guys go to get their tips wet. Since this outpost is so undermanned, she was hoping someone like me might happen along and go and take a look. So Paulie agrees. He can't turn down the request of a lovely young lady like this. Or dude, I don't know, what is that thing on your face? Nipton's where most people start asking questions about these two factions that they've been hearing so much about.
General Oliver's strategy, or tunnel vision, as I like to call it, has been to mass troops at Hoover Dam. He wants to outfight the Legion in a straightforward slugging match, and then, when they rout, pursue and destroy them in detail. A crushing, decisive victory of this sort would overshadow the tactical ingenuity of Chief Hanlon's defense 4 years ago, you see.
Oh, alright, I got you. So, like, General Oliver got a baby dick, and he's got a complex over it, too. All this so he could prove he's the better commander. Yeah, well, fucking, this is what ego gets you, buddy. Because you got these NCR folk who are all holed up in their bases, basically watching people die. I mean, shit, they got a front row seat in Primm.
The facility was run by the NCR for a time, but the prisoners overcame their guards and now use the prison as a base from which to conduct raids. What puzzles me is why these men have been allowed to run wild for so long unchecked. Why has the NCR not retaken this place?
See, here's another thing that this game does really well. I love it when other factions comment on other factions' behavior, right? Like, if you have a powerful faction and they fuck up so bad that you're just like, how are you so powerful? Then it should be addressed by other people like, yeah, can you believe these guys fucking up like that? Because then the writer is acknowledging like, yeah, it seems ridiculous, but these things happen and other people notice it, so it's not just you. I think it's important because it lends to the believability of things like this when you've got a faction as powerful as the NCR, yet as bad at doing their job as they are. You've got to address it. And oddly, a lot of games don't do that. Anyway, yeah, back to the NCR's incompetence. And the people of the Mojave seem to know their game. Gobble up territory by calling it in the interest of national defense, and people will accept you. Hesitantly at first, of course.
Don't get me wrong. The NCR's got a lot of decent folk in it. It's just that they make you part of them whether you like it or not. Towns like Goodsprings and Primm don't stay independent for long. Not if you've got something the NCR wants. Still, the NCR keeps the Legion away.
But eventually the people in Mojave will become complacent with their role of providing the western desert with all the fresh water it needs to, water their stupid fucking lawns or continue living in a desert. I mean, for fuck's sakes, you people import your trees from Florida. You don't need trees. You're in a fucking desert. Okay, maybe you guys don't live in a desert, but you're definitely fucking surrounded by them. Not exactly where I would put millions of people to live.
Anyway.
This playthrough had a ton of firsts for me. It was the first time I ever killed Goodsprings and betrayed Doc Mitchell, the first time I ever blew up the NCR, and it was also the first time I ever used mines as a weapon. Man, oh man, are these things powerful. Just take a look at what they do to your average scumbag. I love explosives in this game, though the skill name is a little misleading because it isn't the explosive skill, it's the throwing skill. Throwing knives work with the explosive skill as well. Like, what the fuck kind of sense does that make? You throw mines too, and they seem to go further after you pick heave-ho. But goddamn is it fun to blow people up. Have the AI trip over to mines for once instead of you. It feels real good to watch their legs pop off like an action figure.
Did you see that? That crazy bitch just attacked me out of nowhere. No, none at all. We've been traveling together since I picked her up a few days ago, and she's been friendly this whole time. We'd actually been flirting a little when she suddenly pulled a gun out and began yelling at me to hand my caps over. Now that I think of it, though, she laughed when I threw her my money. I think what she really wanted was my Lucky Charm necklace.
Let's whack this cocksucker and be done with it.
What? The hell I will.
Damn! Give me your wallet, you prick. What the fuck?
Yeah! Who won the lottery? I did! What lottery? The lottery. That's what lottery. Are you stupid?
Fuck that, I'll say it again. What the fuck?
Are you fucking kidding me? First I get my leg smashed, and then in walks the Powder Ganger's Grim fucking Reaper. What the fuck have you got against us, man?
You go to public bathrooms?
What the fuck do you think, asshole?
Your average man's shithouse is a fucking sewer.
Jesus fucking Christ! If you want me dead, just give me 15 medics and I'll fucking OD for you, okay? Fuck!
Or to look after his physical condition. Wouldn't you say? His knees.
Now, Nipton's in a really bad way right now. Seems the Legion moved in when the NCR had its pants down, both figuratively and literally, and well...
Don't worry. I won't have you lashed to a cross like the rest of these degenerates. It's useful that you happen by. I want you to witness the fate of the town of Nipton, to memorize every detail. And then, when you move on, I want you to teach everyone you meet the lesson that Caesar's Legion taught here. Especially any NCR troops you run across. Where to begin? That they are weak and we are strong? This much was known already. But the depths of their moral sickness, their dissolution, Nipton serves as the perfect object lesson. Nipton was a wicked place, debased and corrupt. It served all comers, so long as they paid. Profligate troops, powder gangers, men of the Legion, such as myself. The people here didn't care. It was a town of whores. For a pittance, the town agreed to lead those it had sheltered into a trap. Only when I sprang it did they realize they were caught inside it too. Yes, and herded them to the center of town. I told them their sins, the foremost being disloyalty. I told them that when legionaries are disloyal, some are punished, the others made to watch. And I announced the lottery. Each clutched his ticket, hoping it would set him free. Each did nothing, even when loved ones were dragged away to be killed.
This speech that Volpes gives you is the first bit of first-hand knowledge you'll get about the Legion, and it really does flesh them out. Everything you know about them is that they are essentially marauders who take slaves from their conquered foes. But this conversation paints them as more of an avenging sort, righting wrongs and sins as they see it, punishing the innocent for the sins of the few they support, because for them, there are no innocent people, just shades of gray. None of these people here are without sin. They supported and helped maintain the power structure that used people and sold people to others like cattle, turning on their protectors simply because they could get a payday out of it. Every one of them was an accessory to a crime. Those that saw it happening and did nothing, those that conspired to help, those that heard rumors and never followed up. All were accountable. All were sinners to be dealt with by the cruelty of random chance. This lottery, what a device this lottery is. They gather up a group of no-goods and disloyal people to the city square, and they sit there rooting against their neighbor, hoping they have the winning number and the other one doesn't. Each one hoping that their friends die before they do. The Legion reduces people to animals before they kill them. That way it's less like killing a human being and more like killing cattle. I mean, at the very least, you gotta respect the poetry that goes into their punishments. They wield hope like a weapon. Volpes tasks us with a mission to spread the word of the Legion's atrocities to sow fear and discord into the ranks of the NCR. As if they needed any more of that, so we head back to the outpost and let Ghost know what we know, and while we're there, we tell everybody about the fucked up shit we just saw down the way, you know, to keep the capos on their toes. Maybe the fear of being crucified will make them rethink their non-interventionalist policies. There's a couple of ways this open world sets itself apart from others. The fact that it seems more linear than it is chiefly among them, and probably the first thing most players will notice. But there is a shortcut north. You could sneak past the Cazadors or just run through them. There are ways to sequence break, and it's very satisfying. If you follow the intended progression, you'll see that the game is designed with hubs like the original Fallout, where you spend most of your time exploring the borders of the cities like routes branching out from the middle. There's another way in which this is unlike its predecessor. Fallout 3 was a typical Bethesda RPG with Bethesda-type tropes. Big old open world with a ton of side activities dotted throughout. But there's something else I noticed about Bethesda games while playing Obsidian's take on the same formula. If you go, like I have been doing, from one major location to the other without getting distracted by points of interest on the way, the journey from one end of the map to the other is quite boring, because it's not like you're taking in the sights, because there's nothing really to see. It's sort of the same argument I had about Oblivion. It's that the journey from one place to another is just bland scenery punctuated by the occasional fight. But if you take away the dungeons, for example, there's nothing really to see or marvel at, and it's the same problem that Oblivion had. Morrowind had this to a much lesser extent because the things you saw in that game were quite magnificent and alien looking, and I was often in awe of what I was seeing the first time I played that game, but I haven't felt that way since then with any Bethesda game save for a few scant moments in Skyrim. I just wanted to share that thought because it became so apparent to me after having played New Vegas again. It's almost like both companies are using a point of interest spacing to distract the player from how bland the game looks. Also understand that I could just be speaking from a place of bias, but this feeling of "Are we there yet?" never really went away when I was walking from one hub to another. Now, I assume that this was because there were fewer POIs in New Vegas than Fallout 3. I mean, what with the amount of time they had to actually make this game, it made sense, but I couldn't have been more wrong. I mean, very wrong. There are way more waypoints in New Vegas than in Fallout 3. So why do I feel that way? Well, here's the thing. I don't know if these games should have been open world in the first place, or instead had a tighter open world, because what exactly is interesting about looking at a game that takes place in a desert after a nuclear holocaust destroyed everything? Am I right? I mean, there's not much to see in that environment, just a bunch of fucked up buildings. And most of the time you're walking, you're doing nothing but walking in one direction, unopposed by anything other than the occasional burned out car shell. So you don't even get to navigate in these games, really. You go, for the most part, in a straight line for a predetermined amount of time, and what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to be exploring the outskirts, right? But I'm just not that type of guy. I usually go from one place to another in search of content, and I think maybe I've gotten a little too used to games that send me to a hub and send me to every side quest in that area from the hub and out to the branches. I'm not saying I I like it that way. I'm saying I'm used to it. I think it's time that the paradigm shifted a little bit. And also, one last thing about maps in these games, exploring something thoroughly is a lot easier with the world map that fills in as you explore it. Sure, the local map fills in, but that shit's kinda hard to read. I'd like a world map that fills in details as I explore, so I could take a look at the map and find locations I haven't explored yet. The local map is too zoomed in to be comfortably read. But I have another idea. It's just a seed, just an idea looking for water. Bethesda's Fallouts take place in dense urban areas, which give their games an entirely different feel to it than New Vegas. And that doesn't mean bad, just different. But I think that the environment in New Vegas is far less interesting than, say, the Capital Wasteland, visually at least. It's in the content where I think this game really shines. Walking through that desert and seeing nothing but blasted to death wilderness, then coming to New Vegas Strip for the first time, well, it's like stumbling onto an oasis. It's very satisfying. So in a way, I guess it works, but it always makes me wonder how this game would have been if it had been smaller, denser, and the team had more time to polish the content that was there instead of trying to compete for the Game of the Year award for the most amount of points of interest in a video game. Plus, these games would benefit from less but better content, but if I've learned anything about what it is that people want, we may say we want better products, but what we really want is more product, not less. So I know it sounds like to some of you that I'm talking out of my ass, but let me explain it this way. Let's say there are two ways to expand content, right? You either expand more content or you make less content that can be experienced in different ways. So for example, let's say you only have 10 main quests in your game instead of 50, but those 10 quests each have 3 to 5 different ways they could play out and affect the content that comes after them, creating permutations of events, which means that every time a player experiences this content, they're experiencing it in almost 50 different ways. An incredible amount of content that requires less landmass, less fucking around, and a tighter, more controlled experience with less bugs and glitches due to complexity introduced in the open world. To close out this discussion, when I talk about this game, there are only a handful of missions I can remember from beginning to end, and those are Goodsprings, because I played it the most, Primm, because it's short, Brotherhood, because it's an awesome and memorable series of events that expanded on the lore in fantastic flourishes, and Novac because it's a fine example of content expanding outwards instead of upwards. Now let's take a look at Novac. Easy Pete is looking different nowadays. Got a new job too, good for him. Novac is for no vacancy, but the place has plenty of vacancies, and you know what? This has always been something that's bothered me, so I need to say something. For places that are supposedly hubs of trading and activity where money changes hands constantly, the places leading from the Mojave Outpost, which is said to be one of the busiest places in the West, all of these towns that act as checkpoints on the way to the Strip are awfully small. And you know what? They might be small in real life. That's fine, but these places seem extra tiny. Like, there's less than 24 people living in this place. Think about how damn vulnerable that makes you as a town. Yet this place, Novac, is able to not only stay free from Caesar's Legion, which is just a hop, skip, and a jump away, but they're able to defend this spot with a gimpy ranger and 2 NCR snipers. Sure, the dinosaur is great for defending the bridge, but it does fuck all for your rear, and I mean 3 people? Listen, the powder gangers took over Primm by sneaking in one night and killing the sheriff and his wife. All these guys live in the same hotel, so one-stop shop if you bring enough dynamite, you know what I mean? Just saying that the fact that these places are so tiny is one of those things that I've always had a problem with ever since Fallout 1, to be honest. The towns are just too small to be believably protected from the elements and the ravages of nature. Like, where's all this food coming from? Where are the farms, the farmers, and the cattle and livestock supplying the stores? I mean, the guy who is a cattle farmer here, he's only got like 3 cows left. What does the wildlife live off of, you know? I feel like the smaller the town, the more questions I end up having, because keep in mind, Novac is the most direct route to New Vegas, so that means a lot of passersby will be stopping here, resupplying here, resting, and so on. Some would even settle down here. There's plentiful salvage around and plenty of clay in the desert, so Why are these places so small? I mean, I know the answer to that. I'm just commenting that cities in these games, in any first-person RPG game with next-level graphics, are just incapable of conveying the scale and scope of a real city, even a post-apocalyptic one. Either the technology forbids it, or the lack of time scales the vision down, or designers find it much easier to have a smaller city because it's less overwhelming for the player to explore. You might be able to chalk this up to, well, it's the wasteland, of course there's not a lot of people. So answer me this then, did everybody's dick just stop working? Because I know a dude that makes minimum wage and has 12 kids. First person you might notice as you head into town is Victor. You know, the cowboy robot from Goodsprings. And you might be asking yourself, how in the hell does he keep winding up in the places that I'm just arriving at? How is he always ahead of me, but also always catching up to me when I need help?
Don't rightly know. I just got the notion to make my way to New Vegas. Reckon I'll find out when I get there. Seeing how this is the only road around, I'd be a sight more surprised if we didn't run into each other from time to time.
Some people believe that he's been following you, but that's not true. Victor's an AI in the network that is swapping himself in and out of robots as you approach. You can tell this is happening the first time you enter the strip proper. Victor greets you as you enter, and then his screen turns back into the face of a police bot. Then, Victor reappears at the top of the steps at the entrance of the Lucky 38 in a different robot. Victor's only interested in one thing, and that's keeping you alive. He's not worried about your feud with Daisy Suit or any of the various plights befalling the towns on the way to the strip. He has one job, and that is delivering us to his master.
No, don't believe I did. But you might ask around. The Novac folk usually see anyone traveling this way.
He won't even confirm or deny if we're on the right track, because if we did somehow catch up to Daisy Suit before he could deliver us to House, it could mean our deaths, which would jeopardize everything that House is going for, and at this point in the story, that's not even a spoiler. See, back in Goodsprings, if you talk to Chet about Mr. House, he has this to say.
I'm afraid I don't know much myself. Mr. House has got his own casino, Lucky 38, but nobody goes in or out except his robots. The other casinos follow Mr. House's rules, so I guess that makes him the leader of New Vegas. As far as I know, nobody's ever laid eyes on the guy. I think that robot who pulled you out of the dirt belongs to Mr. House. If Mr. House is looking after you, it's got to be a good thing, right?
What do we know so far? Well, we know that House is powerful and no one has ever seen him. This means two things to a first-timer. It means that House is either an AI or some kind of immortal recluse. We know he's powerful if he's leading a place where money is flowing like Vegas, and we know he's looking out for us because all these robot guys are under Mr. House's control. And one of them is looking out for us directly, which means House is looking out for us, which in turn means we're valuable to his plans in Vegas. This game is very good at delivering a lot of info to the player without saying a whole lot about it. It lets the player put the information together from what little they've been told, and when you create mystery like this, you get player buy-in, which is important because it keeps them from asking questions like, why is the Vegas Strip 2 roads and a water pump? Novac has a notable mission which everybody already knows about, so I don't think I'm going to cover it. You go into a RepCon facility, meet a dapper ghoul named Bright, kill a bunch of purple super mutants who forgot to take their meds, and send a bunch of naive ghouls to their death on nuclear-powered rockets aimed at the ground. The more interesting quest in this place is Boone and his missing wife.
They knew when to come and what route to take, and they only took Carla. Someone set it up. I don't know who. My wife's dead. I want the son of a bitch who sold her.
Boone is the kind of character that I always ignored because I thought he was a prick. And he is a prick, but goddamn is he good at killing other pricks. So this time around I decided to do this mission. I usually pass, but I remember the first time I played this mission, I was surprised by who actually did it. And it's another way that the game is showing you who the various factions in the game really are. You learn about them both through what people say about them, either conservative estimations or vastly overemphasized stories, and the other way you learn about them is through what they do. Look at this woman.
I hope you're finding everything to your liking.
I know she sounds older than she looks, but that's to hide the snake she really is.
Nothing that wouldn't be wrong with any man who loses a wife, I suppose. Poor dear. I know he thinks she was kidnapped, but I'm not so sure she didn't just run off on her own. You could tell she was thinking about it ever since they arrived.
See, she's got the voice of someone letting a pie cool off on a windowsill, but what you don't know is that she's been poisoning the pie, hoping your rotten-ass kids will come over and try to steal it. She sold Boone's wife off to the Legion to become a broodmare for some legionary soldiers, but why? Why did Grandma Shanghai Boone's wife?
Carla was a knockout. Whenever Boone walked around with her, he always had this funny grin on his face like he couldn't believe his luck. I know we couldn't. That wasn't the only reason she stuck out, though. That girl never minced words. If she'd had better food or hospitality, she'd let you hear it. Trouble was, she usually had. I don't think she meant it. She really was a sweet girl. I think she just wanted to remind herself that there's still nicer places in this world than Novac. Who could blame her for that?
This bitch right here, she could. Because Boone's wife was an uppity bitch, so she had it coming, you know what I mean? Now, at this point, you got Boone up there in a dinosaur head acting like a semi-auto turret for whoever you decide to bring out front. So if you were to say, bring a certain Ranger out front, you get a free set of Ranger armor and a cool New York Yankees hat with a 360 brim.
It's like I'm killing this drip, that's what it is, I'm a drip slayer.
But I suggest getting rid of this bitch right here, she's gotta go.
Watch out for strangers.
See what I mean? She even says bye weird.
Okay, if that's what you think.
Submit to a credit check, or present your passport before proceeding to the gate. Trespassers will be shot.
Now by this point, you should have well over 10 grand saved. If you didn't, I suggest you go out and do some looting because you need at least 2,000 caps to get past the Securitrons. You can easily raise this money by playing blackjack at the Atomic Wrangler, or you could do the main missions for the Kings. And if you're wondering if I'm going to cover the King's quest line, I'm not. It's probably one of the most boring quest lines in the game. Like, honestly, I mean, especially from one of those standpoints of, well, this is like a main quest in the game. One that most players are going to run across and probably do. There's two different endings. One ending where you kill all the NCR and one ending where you don't kill all the NCR. But either way, it all kind of ends in the same exact way. The only reason you do this quest is to get the robot dog and then put the rabies-filled brain of a Reaver's dog inside of it. There's 3 ways in total past this robot. If you have 2,000 caps to do a credit check, you can get past. If you have 80 in science, you can convince the robot to let you through. Or if you get in good with the Kings and have someone put in a good word for you. And if you have the Gunrunner's arsenal, you can get Mick to show you the real goods and get access to a power fist at level 10.
Howdy, partner. You've come for a piece, haven't you? Welcome to New Vegas. Sorry, Rambler. I know you're fixing to serve up some vengeance, but I'm gonna have to point you to the Lucky 38 first. Mr. House, the head honcho of New Vegas, is itching to make your acquaintance. He'll help you serve that cold dish of yours extra chili.
Intrigued, Paulie heads to talk to Mr. House.
This meeting has been a long time coming, hasn't it? You've come a long ways, literally, and I suspect figuratively as well. I have to ask, now that you've reached your destination, what do you make of what you see? Oh, come now, don't play the fool. Vegas has fools enough, a superfluity of them. They're what makes it so profitable. They come to Vegas chasing penny-ante dreams of high living, to feel like they're big shots, like they're winners. You see that you and I are of a different stripe, don't you? We don't have to dream that we're important. We are.
So when I said that we felt important, that could be because we are, or because Mr. House wants us to feel like we're important. Either way, he puts to words what we can only feel as a background sensation.
The business is this. One of my employees has stolen an item of extraordinary value from me, and I want it recovered. Simple enough. My only concern is the recovery of the platinum chip. What happens to Benny, I leave to your discretion. When you bring the chip to me, I will pay you 4 times the delivery bonus stipulated in your contract. How's that? Well enough. Return to me when you have the platinum chip in your possession. Any final matters for us to discuss?
Any questions will have to wait until Paulie's had his revenge. Now I think we all know how Paulie's going to react to seeing Benny, but how could another calmer person react? Well, you could agree to meet Benny in his room, and if you have a hole where a penis would be, then Benny might try to put his no-no in your sacred place. Or you could just agree to help him and see where helping a guy who tried to kill you ends you up at. We head to the tops to square up with Benny, get the chip, and whatever the prick has in his wallet.
You've recovered the platinum chip. Let's have it. Such a small thing, isn't it? And yet so capacious, so very dear. Decades of hiring salvagers out west to search for this little relic in the ruins of a place called Sunnyvale. Back then, anyway. That's where the chip was printed, on October 22nd, 2077. It was to have been hand-delivered to me here at the Lucky 38 the next day. But the bombs fell first. Suffice it to say, the delivery was never made. A great deal shall be happening, a cascade of events with you taking a central role. At the moment, however, all you need to do is take the elevator all the way down to the bottom level. You'll understand soon enough.
A few moments later.
Step closer to the demonstration area, if you would. I expect you're well familiar with my Securitrons by now. The titanium alloy housing that protects its electronic core deflects small arms and shrapnel easily enough. Its X-25 Gatling laser, produced to spec by Glastinghouse Inc., is deadly against soft targets at medium range. And for close-range suppression or crowd control, the Securitron is armed with a 9mm submachine gun. All of this you probably already knew. What you did not know is that these are the Securitron's secondary weapons. All this time, my Securitrons have had to get by running the Mark I operating system, which lacked software drivers for their primary weapons. Today, with the delivery of the Platinum chip, all that changes. Behold, for the first time, Securitrons running the Mark II OS. The M235 missile launcher gives the Securitron the ability to engage ground and air targets at significantly longer ranges. And a rapid-fire G-28 grenade launcher ensures the Securitron is deadly in close-range engagements. The software upgrade also includes drivers for the Securitron's highly sophisticated on-board auto-repair systems. Altogether, the Mark II software upgrade confers a 235% increase in combat effectiveness per unit. The city of New Vegas finally has soldiers worthy of protecting it. Return to the penthouse now. We have much to discuss. Trips to the basement are rarely so educational, don't you think?
Well, you're right about that. Most trips to the basement just end in emotional scarring.
I've since broadcast the upgrade to every Securitron in range of my transmitters, and I must say, it's causing quite a stir down on the strip.
But now, Paulie says, you've shown your hand to the enemy. Now they know your plan, and they have time to prepare a defense. And this is why Paulie didn't kill House and try to take over the strip for himself. He's not a leader, he knows that. He's the kind of guy who follows great men, and after House's big reveal, he doesn't so much as doubt him, but is eager to prove himself to his new boss.
I'm surprised you can still underestimate me after everything you've seen. I haven't shown my hand. I've shown one card. I've given my enemies a single provocative datum upon which to fixate. They have no idea what other cards I'm holding. It's a strong hand, believe me. I dealt it to myself.
And while they're watching what you're doing over here, they don't see what the other hand is doing.
The next step will require you to infiltrate Caesar's camp at Fortification Hill. I want you to open a hatch in the basement of the derelict weather station atop Fortification Hill. You'll recognize it on sight. The hatch bears the logo of the Lucky 38, same as the Platinum chip.
Okay, just so I've got this, you want me to walk into the heart of a base full of people who I've been mercilessly slaughtering this whole time, look a warlord in his eye, lie to him, then break into a bunker under their base without anybody getting wiser to it. Alright, sounds like fun, but tell me this, what does Paulie get out of this?
I'm not offering you an incentive as crude as money, though there'll be plenty of that. What I'm offering you is a ground floor opportunity in the most important enterprise on Earth. What I'm offering is a future. For you, and for what remains of the human race.
Paulie agrees to think about it, but we need to get to know this House guy a little better before agreeing to do anything. If you have questions, House is ready to answer them for you since you did what you were hired to do. It'll help you get the measure of the man you're dealing with. When you ask about Benny and why he didn't seem to care what happened to him, Mr. House says this.
That's because he ceased to be relevant when you recovered the Platinum chip. Revenge doesn't interest me. Progress does. Sorry to deny you a moment of primate triumph, but you'll have to go elsewhere to sound your barbaric yawp.
He seems to be above the petty squabbles of the Strip at this point. He doesn't care how many people die, so long as his plan and his property are safe. You can see this as pragmatic, or you could just think of him as a narcissist. I mean, maybe it's both. But he shows moments of humanity when confronted with his memories of what the Vegas Strip used to be.
It was a place of splendor. As magnificent as today's Strip may seem, it's but a shadow of the neon paradise that was Las Vegas. I grew up not far from here, and though I traveled the old world extensively, I never found another place like it. By 2065, I deemed it a mathematical certainty that an atomic war would devastate the Earth within 15 years. Every projection I ran confirmed it. I knew I couldn't save the world, nor did I care to, but I could save Vegas, and in the process, perhaps save mankind. I set to work immediately. I thought I had plenty of time to prepare. As it turned out, I was 20 hours short. On the day of the Great War, 77 atomic warheads targeted Las Vegas and its surrounding areas. My networked mainframes were able to predict and force transmit disarm code subsets to 59 warheads, neutralizing them before impact. Laser cannons mounted on the roof of the Lucky 38 destroyed another 9 warheads. The rest got through, though none hit the city itself. A suboptimal performance, admittedly. If only the platinum chip had arrived a day sooner. The platinum chip was printed in Sunnyvale, California on October 22nd, 2077, the day before the Great War. It was to have been delivered by courier the following afternoon, but by then, the world had ended. The chip contained vital software upgrades, but not just for my Securitrons. Every aspect of the missile defense grid would have been upgraded too. Given that I had to make do with buggy software, the outcome could have been worse. I nearly died as it was. Software glitches set off a cascade of system crashes. I had to take the Lucky 38's reactor offline, lest it melt down. For nearly 5 years, I battled power outages and more system crashes until I finally managed to reboot my data core with an older version of the OS. I spent the next few decades in a veritable coma, but I survived, obviously, and eventually thrived.
This man, whoever he is a goddamn legend. It sounds like he managed to not only defy the Grim Reaper, but the nuclear powers of the day. But a bad calculation ended it all for him. Paulie knew who he was going to be working for. Mr. House was the only answer. He's the only reason that city's still standing, and he's probably the only hope for it to stay standing. So Paulie is off to see the savages on top of Fortification Hill.
Halt! What business have you in Cottonwood Cove, outsider? You wear the mark of Caesar. You must be who Cursor Lucullus is waiting for. You may continue, but be warned. Mark or no, we will not tolerate aggressive action by visitors in the camp.
And boy, oh boy, is that a fucking shame, because these guys truly do deserve an ass whooping.
We're being held here against our will. I beg you, help us. Sorry, I'm just glad someone is doing something. The last thing I need is to be made some legionary's bitch and sent off to God knows where.
See, I told you, man. See, this guy's worried about getting his pooper breached. And look at this. They got kids in cages. Ain't that something?
Oh, it's just awful here. Can't you help us?
Ah, that's cute. But no, I can't. Now, the first time I came through this place, Paulie's instinct was to kill everybody here. I mean, after seeing the kids in cages, he just couldn't stand it. He was like, these fascist fucks gotta go. But after killing my way through Caesar's entire legion, I thought to myself, it'd be nice if I could actually hear what this Caesar guy has to say. Maybe he's got some good ideas, who knows? The sun shines on a dog's ass at least once a day, right? If you do decide to go and kill Caesar, I got some tips for you. His little area that you have to fight him in, it's not great. He's got like 8 bodyguards, and they all dogpile onto you all at once. So, what I found the best way to do this is to pull out Annabelle, the missile launcher, and just start running away and hitting them with rockets. It works really well. These guys can't muster a defense against that.
Anyway.
See, this guy, he's in charge of taking you up the river to get to the fort. And I guess that's all he does, is he just operates the boat. And then when you get there, they want all your weapons. Yeah, you're not allowed to have your weapons here. You can keep a holdout pistol like you can in the casinos, but it ain't gonna help you very much against these guys. Remember when I said that there's not much to the Caesar's Legion faction? It really isn't. I mean, you can look around and tell there's nobody to talk to. There's only like maybe 2 NPCs that actually have any dialogue, and the dialogue that they have is not all that great, and the only thing there really is to do here is maybe enter into the arena, but if you have a vagina, you can't.
I suspect you'll be a valuable asset to the Legion. Assuming you're really on our side, of course.
Yeah, of course I'm on your side. I mean, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Of course. Now, Volpes will give you a mission, and, you know, you could do that mission if you want, but I'm not going to do it because it's a side mission, and like I said, this is only about the main story. But it'll help flesh out the whole Gamora storyline if you're really all that interested.
It is a great honor for anyone outside the Legion to get an audience with Kaisar.
Yeah, that's nice, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I expected a little bit more from this Kaisar guy. I mean, Kaisar kinda looks like a dude from a Cialis commercial, if you know what I mean.
No, Legate Lanius is Kaisar's second. The Legate replaced the Burned Man after the Legion's defeat at the Dam several years ago. The Burned Man was Kaisar's advisor and general when the Legion was originally formed. The Burned Man led us to a disastrous defeat at the Dam. On Kaisar's orders, the Burned Man was covered in pitch by the Praetorian Guard, lit on fire, and cast into the Grand Canyon. Kaisar has forbidden us from ever speaking his true name again, and so we simply refer to him as the Burned Man.
It's interesting to me that Kaisar has decided to make sure that nobody speaks the Burned Man's true name. It's almost like speaking his true name reminds Kaisar that this man was once his trusted friend and advisor and ally. The way to dehumanize the man so Kaisar doesn't have to feel a human emotion.
It's not going to happen again, that's all I have to say about it. And I've heard it's a bad idea to tempt the wrath of Kaisar. Change the subject. You're the courier who caused so much trouble for my Legion, and yet you dare come before me. The garrison I established at Nelson has been wiped out.
That was a paranormal event.
So tell me this, because I really want to know. I am feared, with good reason. But you, of all people, dare to come here and stand before me, the mighty Kaisar. What were you thinking?
Well, I figured I'd come here and blow all your asses up with a rocket, you know? I mean, what are you gonna do, fucking punch me?
He's asking me, I'm telling him.
Maybe I should have you struck blind so my face is the last sight you ever behold.
Stop getting cunty.
Look, you do know why I wanted to meet you, right? A man nearly kills you, so you track him across the breadth of the Mojave. You arrive on the strip and waltz into the Lucky 38 like someone left you a key under the doormat. You assassinate the head of the chairman in his own casino and get away with it. Then something happens to Mr. House's robot, some kind of military upgrade.
Next, the blind will see and the lame will walk.
When you set your mind to something, you get results. I like that. The question is, are you ready to get started?
You remember before where I was talking about how some factions will comment on the actions of other factions? Well, sometimes those factions will comment on the things that you've done, and this is a really good bit of dialogue because it communicates to the player that your actions are important. They're important enough for people to not only recognize your actions, but comment on them, and they'll either condemn you for it or congratulate you on it. It's just a really nice way that the game acknowledges you for the things that you've done and the choices that you've made and makes the gameplay feel unique in that way, right? Like the game has tailored itself around the experience that you're trying to experience, and it gives you the freedom to experience it any way you want, right? Like I never felt at any time during these playthroughs where I was just like, man, I really wish I could do this because I always could do that. It's really a fantastic game.
The time is fast approaching when my Legion will assault the Great Dam and invade the West. Before that happens, I want Mr. House knocked out of the game. A quick 1-2 punch, with you doing the punching. I have eyes and ears everywhere. It behooves me not to invade the West blind and deaf. It hasn't been hard to track your progress. It's not as though you've been keeping a low profile. Down the hill, at the west edge of camp, is an old building. It was here when the fort was taken in 2277. Inside the building is a hatch, and inside that hatch are 2 steel doors that bear the sigil of the Lucky 38 Casino. Now that same sigil is on the platinum chip you were carrying. Isn't that interesting? Even more interesting, There's a slot about the same size as the chip on the console that opens the hatch. So you know what I think? I think the platinum chip opens those doors. Doors that can't be pried open, or drilled open, or blasted open. Because all that, I tried. I want you to destroy whatever you find in there. And then I want you to come back here and tell me about it. So go to the building and take this fucking platinum chip with you. My legionaries will meet you there, with your weapons and equipment. Goodbye.
Now, this next part might not seem like much, but trust me, it really is, because when I first experienced this series of events, I was shocked that I could do this. So, here's what happens. Kaiser wants you to go down into the base that's underneath the Fortification Hill, and he wants you to destroy whatever house has got down there. Here's the thing. He doesn't actually go down there to check to see if you've actually done it, so you can trick him into thinking you did the thing, while actually not having done the thing at all. And you'll suffer no ill consequences for it either, because you completely fooled Kaiser, you know, this super intelligent Ubermensch guy, and all you had to do was just tell him a little lie. That's it.
Your work here is done. Return to the Lucky 38 so we can discuss next steps. You have a very bright future ahead of you. Thanks to your actions today, so does the rest of mankind.
Game takes betraying factions to a whole other level. I mean, holy shit. The amount of interactions between you and the factions is fantastic. It took what Bethesda normally does with its factions, which is allow you to join whatever faction you want and fuck around for both of them and do all their missions and everything. And it said, but what if you could betray them?
I felt the ground shake a while ago. I'll take that as a sign you've got the job done.
What if you could only join one faction, but in reality, you could be a member of all the factions, working for all of them while in the background working against them? It makes you feel like you're a fucking spy. Like, it makes you feel like you are committing espionage. It's awesome. If you have any questions for Kaiser, now's the time to ask him, because he seems to be in a chatty mood.
My Praetorians embody the martial ideals of my legion. Each one of them has done enough conquering and killing to deserve the rank of Centurion. Instead, I invited them to join my guard. So the invitee chooses whichever current guard he thinks is weakest and challenges him. The fight is to the death. It keeps them from getting complacent.
See, Kaiser is a cold motherfucker. He don't care about nothing but results. He don't care if you're his friend, if you've been his bodyguard for a decade. He don't give a shit. If you can't fight no more, he don't want you. He don't want nothing to do with you. You're just a waste of resources to him. Get the fuck out of my camp.
Lucius has been the head of my guard for 5 years now. He was a subordinate guard for 8 before that. No invitee has dared to challenge him yet. Maybe it's an issue of respect. He is getting on in years.
If you ask Kaiser about Vulpes, he has a lot to say, and in fact, this dialogue about Vulpes, it actually gets pretty in-depth as to what these inculta or these frumentari actually do, and how the disciplinary situations inside the Legion actually work, and how Kaiser will actually subvert his own disciplinary actions in order to keep valuable personnel around.
Vulpes is the best of my frumentari. A remarkable individual from an unremarkable tribe south of the Utah. He was brought into the Legion as a boy, survived training, fought well enough as a legionary to be promoted to the rank of Decanus. Then in battle against an unimportant tribe, he broke ranks and led his contubernium through a hole in their defenses to capture its chieftain. Well, his Centurion wanted him crucified for disobedience, so I made him a frumentari.
The rules are only rules if they serve Kaiser's purposes. If they don't, he disregards them entirely.
Whatever I require. Infiltration, assassination, dramatic atrocities to break the spirit of the enemy, etc. They're mentally flexible. They operate behind enemy lines for extended periods, imitating the enemy's customs without becoming sullied. In all these things, Vulpes is a master.
So in a way, the rules don't really mean anything. It's just like the idea that you don't have rights if they could just be taken away from you anytime somebody wants. That's the world of double standards that these people live in. Now Kaiser has one more weapon in his little bag of tricks, and that's Linnaeus. his battlefield commander. He was once a member of a tribe called the Hyde Barks in Arizona, and apparently he was so savage that not only did he impress Caesar, but he scared the shit out of all the legionaries.
When after several months we found and surrounded the Hyde Barks camp, their chieftain raised a banner of surrender. The warrior, who was not yet Linnaeus, went insane with rage. He struck down his chieftain and attacked his own tribe. He killed 15 before they brought him down. He didn't die, obviously. I had him tended to. He was maimed, most of his face torn off. It was days before he regained consciousness. When he did, I went to his bedside and showed him the helmet I'd had forged to cover his face. I said he could have it if he'd fight for me. He accepted, on condition that he be allowed to kill the surviving males of his tribe. I said, make it the adult males, and you have a deal.
Yuck! See, this is what I mean. Caesar is, he's an interesting fella.
I'm Veronica. I live in a hole in the ground.
Veronica's in an abusive relationship with the Brotherhood.
You got a second? The Brotherhood is failing. I've always known that. If we don't change course, we're going to fall apart, or fade away. But until recently, I haven't understood where we went wrong, or how to fix it. I think I need to go home.
See, she wants to have the Brotherhood be a force for good in Mojave, to use that technology that they've been hoarding to help people, and build civilization back up again, which, honestly, they owe it to the people.
You know, I've been thinking. The real problem with the Brotherhood is that we isolate ourselves. Our training is top-notch, our technology gives us an advantage, but when it all comes down to it, we're losing because we shun the outside world. We always make enemies, never allies. We refuse to recruit outsiders or see the value in their simpler technologies. I don't know. I'm still thinking about what kind of role we could take on that would give us the best chance of survival. But I think things are starting to come together. I know the odds aren't good, but I gotta try. I can't lose them.
Bitch, didn't your mom ever tell you that you're not supposed to try and change people? You can't change people, man. They think they're just fine the way they fucking are. That's why they are the way they are. They've never examined their own life and said, holy shit, am I really this bad? Am I really this shitty of a person? Yes, very likely you are that shitty of a person, but you've just never examined it. And it's the same with the Brotherhood. You can't change them. You got to get out of this relationship, girl. You need to pack a bag and get the fuck out of town.
They're cautious. When they discover something, they respect it, learn its limits, consider how to preserve it. Used to drive Father Elijah crazy. He liked to learn limits too, but only so he could push them. That's not to excuse the other elders, though. They all covet technology for its own sake. Some are just more fanatical than others.
But the Brotherhood is selfish and isolationist. Selfish cowards, to put it another way. She believes she can change them if she presents her argument well enough. And after you give her something girly to wear, she'll trust you enough to do another side mission. And that side mission has to do with you changing the mind of the Brotherhood that they should be taking a more active role in the defense of the Mojave. And to do this, you have to find research. And you got 3 different types of research that you can go and look for, but it doesn't really matter, because the Brotherhood is slavishly dedicated to their ideologies.
Your next assignment is to locate and destroy remnants of the Mojave chapter of the Brotherhood of Steel.
House wants us to wipe out the Brotherhood because he knows what they are.
Given the Brotherhood's fanatical views on technology, they can be counted on to oppose my regime. Please, put them out of my misery.
And honestly, having the one good guy in this game force the player to kill a faction that Bethesda's been sucking off in a closet for years feels like Obsidian forcing the player to come to a realization, a hard realization. There's nothing good about the Brotherhood. I think that the biggest problem that I have with the modern day Fallout games is the way that Bethesda has interpreted some of the lore. I don't think they really understood the Brotherhood. And I think I may have romanticized them as well, which is the power of simile in a way. They stand in for knights in shining armor, and we associate those guys with damsels being saved from dragons, which is probably not true. These guys were probably stepping on the necks of peasants for most of their day, you know what I mean? And the Brotherhood is a lot like the reality of knights. They are cultish and hoarders of technology, just like knights with their armor and weapons. They even try to kill you in the original Fallout by sending you to the most deadly place in the wasteland and if you somehow survive getting absolutely torched by radiation, the guy at the gate is gonna look at you like, oh shit, you're back. I didn't think you'd live. And it's like, dude, you're gonna say that to me, to my face, when I'm standing within slapping distance. They're evil, just not purposefully evil. They deny help to the wasteland and actively try to prevent people from being able to defend themselves. Now that is some evil shit. They're like the Uvalde police in New Vegas. You can't change the Brotherhood's mind no matter what you do. Listen to how he talks about changing the course of the Brotherhood.
Veronica, I hope...
I brought you a present. This disc has secrets to breeding plants that can thrive in the wasteland.
High Elder Maxon didn't found us to be botanists, Veronica.
Think about it. No more trading guns for food. Total self-sufficiency. It's what we always wanted.
This won't get us Hoover Dam.
Yes, it will. If we feed people, they'll support us. They'll join us.
What does the Codex say?
A bunch of closed-minded bullshit.
We do not help them or let them in.
But...
we keep knowledge they must never have.
give it a chance. For me. I can't stay here and watch us waste away.
I'm sorry.
We'll die out.
I know.
Come on. I can't listen to this anymore.
Helping the Brotherhood is like helping a playground bully steal your lunch money, except they'll be stealing the entire Mojave's lunch money. You don't have to kill them, but like Hal says, they'll always be a problem and offer little in the way of help. They'll always be a problem because they're fanatical and no amount of reason will talk them out of suicide at the hands of hostility and isolationist policies.
Welcome, outsider, welcome. The lockdown has been officially lifted, and everyone seems to be in good spirits. With the surface open to us once again, Hardin's already started talk of sending a force out to attack Helios, but I hope to dissuade him.
Sure, they might patrol the roads at the end of the day and protect them from bandits, but they steal tech from people because of bigotry. They have to die in order for the wasteland to thrive. The death of the Brotherhood feels awful because of Veronica. The game helps us identify with them by making us like her, and because we like her, we think, well, they can't all be that bad, can they? And that's the right instinct. It feels bad to kill them because not all of them are this close-minded, but they are led by people who are, and nothing is going to change that. In fact, fuck the Brotherhood.
Oh no. No.
Hello. Sharing knowledge with an outsider organization. I knew Veronica couldn't be trusted. We tracked your movements a long way, but it was worth to catch her in the act. Passing Brotherhood secrets to outsiders is the lowest form of treason. What have you got to say for yourself? She has made her intentions plain. We will not risk any further damage. In the name of the Elder, I hereby sentence you to death.
They kill unarmed scientists and doctors. Fuck them. Like when I finally did Veronica's questline and let her join the followers, this happened. The only reason these guys are still around is because Bethesda brought them back. They disappeared during the events of Part 2 and are suddenly in fucking DC in 3K. They were assholes in Part 1. They literally sent you and many others to die, providing false hope into an open, irradiated grave. I think that, like with anything, your opinion is going to be colored by your experiences, right? A lot of people who played Fallout 3 never played Fallout 1. Like, Fallout 3 was their first Fallout game. So if you've never played Fallout 1, you have no idea why people who are like bitching about how the Brotherhood is portrayed in Bethesda games, you won't understand why they're like that, because you're like, this seemed fine to me, but it's like, you never seen what kind of bastards they were in Part 1. Eventually, the actions of the Brotherhood just becomes way too much for Veronica, and she admits to something that's very important for someone like her to admit.
God, I did this. This was my fault. Why didn't I see this coming? Of course they'd track me. Of course they'd assume the worst. Sure, I left them, but that didn't mean I'd ever be free of them. I should have known I was beaten before I began. I had to try, you know?
I did a poll recently and I asked people why they didn't side with Caesar's Legion, and I had 4 options on there. I did, which is, yeah, I joined them. The Legion is evil. I didn't want to be evil and didn't want to kill House. Now this third option right here, I didn't want to be evil, that's the thing I want to talk about right now. I added this option because I wanted to know if people felt the same way I did, and a surprising amount of people identified the character's actions as being like their own, meaning they control killed the character, therefore they were inflicting pain on other people. This was okay so long as the people having pain inflicted on them did the same to others, like righteous justice, right? And even though there's this separation between what will allow our character to do and what we would actually do in real life, like, you know, killing 100 fucking people, like in a game like this, there doesn't seem to be much separation between you and your character, which makes people feel like they themselves are committing these atrocities. Getting this connection requires the player to feel connected to characters, and with how wooden these animations are, that's a real achievement, because a good amount of people identified the character's actions as their own, and it wasn't down to just them controlling it. It means that they would have to inflict pain on digital characters in a world that they identified with enough to not want to harm everything in it. Now, you could do the Brotherhood's missions, and you could try to figure out for yourself if they're worth saving, and it's fun for the most part, and at the end you get to wear power armor, but it's mainly a lot of you running back and forth for shit. And after you've done the list of factions for House, you'll come to the final battle in the game, Hoover Dam.
As events in the wider world are coming to a head.
Before we could go and assault the dam, we gotta talk Aaron Kimball out of suicide at the hands of stupidity.
Apparently, he hasn't considered the effect on the troops' morale of seeing their beloved leader get his brains blown out by a Legion sniper.
President Aaron Kimball's gotta stay alive, right? House has his reasons for this, but he doesn't reveal his reasons until after you've saved the president, which I think is a real big mistake. I think you need to let the player know why this guy's worth saving, because if you're thinking about, like, let's say, holding control of Hoover and keeping control of Hoover Dam away from the NCR, then naturally your player is going to be thinking Aaron Kimball needs to die. But House has some pretty special logic there, and it seems to ring true, and it'd be nice to have known it before you actually go on the mission. So I'm going to play it for you now.
Kimball's entire political career is inextricably bound up with the NCR's occupation of the Mojave. It's his war. If I compel the NCR to retreat, Kimball will be the sacrifice offered to the gods so decent NCR citizens can get on with their lives. In retrospect, the Mojave and Hoover Dam will seem like one man's misadventure. Kimball will be blamed, not me, not New Vegas. Then the hero of the Mojave would become the martyr of Hoover Dam, and when, subsequently, I force the NCR to retreat, they lick their wounds and dream of righteous vengeance against New Vegas. Hello, embargo. Farewell, tourist economy. I've calculated and recalculated these probabilities. Kimball must live.
And after no less than 2 successful reloads and getting President Aaron Kimball killed twice, you'll then be told to start up a substation to get more power to your little Securitron robots. And then you'll be told that the battle for Hoover Dam is now available. And you could go there now if you want, or you could spend another 100 hours in the desert fucking around. This is what those in the biz like to call the point of no return. It's called the point of no return because you ain't coming back from this. So if you want to do any of these other missions, well, as they say, the time is nigh. Now at the very end, you get one last chance here. You get one last chance to decide if you're going to work for House anymore or if you're going to work against him, right? You get one last chance to betray this guy. In fact, they even try to give you one more chance after you beat the game. I mean, it's hard to explain how much depth it adds when you're able to betray these guys at basically any point in the game, even up to the very end. You know, you could be the guy who just keeps betraying people back and forth, playing both sides of the fence, or you could be the guy who's playing the long game, the long con, letting House think he's in power, and then the whole time he's working in the background against him. Now, I could spend the next 10 minutes talking about the combat, but the combat ain't all that great. I mean, you get on the Hoover Dam, they throw a bunch of kind of strong enemies at you, and you just sort of steamroll your way through. I mean, if you got love and hate at the very beginning of the game, you've basically been steamrolling through this game, right? So the combat's not the highlight. In fact, I didn't even want to fight the bosses, I just wanted to talk to them.
An envoy of Vegas, yet you carry yourself for battle. If so, you cannot truly be of that city of cowards.
When you ask Legate Linnaeus why Kaisar's not here to meet you in battle, he has this to say.
Kaisar's will is made truth through me. I am a hammer against all that defy his rule.
Okay, so you're just not going to answer the question, all right.
If you seek to stand against me, You shall fall as the West falls.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, totally. We'll get to that, but let me ask you some questions first.
I see you fight with words, like all beneath the flag of the bear.
Oh, nah, fuck that. This ain't gonna be no West Side Story kind of thing. We ain't gonna be like, fucking dancing around each other, fucking sing fighting. Fuck that, no. We're just gonna talk, man. I just wanna have a talk. We never talk anymore, me and you.
Let us hope your skill with weapons proves greater.
Wow, man, you are a really angry dude. The only thing you can think about is fighting. I used to know a guy like you. Yeah. His name was Vinny Glitter. This guy, he was in collections, right? And he would go around to his people, and if they didn't have the money to pay up, what he would do is instead of breaking their legs or their thumbs or something, something like outrageous that makes them realize, like, you better pay the next time I come around. You know what he would do? He'd fuck them. He'd fuck them in the ass. And it was only men, and only at this one club. It was really strange, man. And when you'd ask him, like, hey, man, why you do that? They'll never forget it, will they? And they'll have my money the next time I come around. But I think in all of that, Vinny was kind of downplaying his own pleasure in the game, you know what I mean? And I'm going to be honest with you right now, Leggett. You're reminding me a lot of Vinny right now. I mean, don't take offense or nothing. I mean, he was a good guy. I'm just saying, with the headdress and everything, I don't know, man. You might want to, tone it down a little bit. Take it down a notch. You're flying too high in the sky, buddy. You're gonna burn your wings.
Our roads into NCR are hung with the bodies of those who attempted to negotiate with us. Save your speeches. We will take Hoover Dam and move forward until our feet crush the setting sun beneath them.
Alright, well look, I'm not trying to be negative or nothing, but you guys have been trying to take Hoover Dam for a while now. How's that been working out for you?
Hoover Dam has never seen the mass strength of the East. Only Leggett such as Graham, who deserved the fire Kaiser blessed him with. Now I am here, and make markers of your people as the Legion carves its way west.
Now you see, that reminds me of another story about Vinny Glitter. You know what he used to do? How he used to get these guys and surprise them? Here's what he used to do. It's really funny, man. It's actually kind of brilliant, and it's very relevant to what we're talking about here. See, while one guy was in the bathroom at this bar fucking another dude, he would come up behind him and fuck that dude. See, that's what's gonna happen to you. You understand? You're gonna be too busy fucking the NCR, and the East is gonna come up from behind you and fuck you.
You speak in circles.
Yeah, you're not the first one to say that, actually.
I am the East, and I will prove it this day.
Yeah, but now you got nobody behind you protecting your rear, dude. It's like when you're standing at a urinal, right? You ever feel like this? You stand at a urinal and you pull your pants down a little bit, and then a guy comes up next to you and he starts taking a piss, right? But now you got your pants down, right? So you're a little worried that this guy's going to do something, like, I don't know, stick his index finger in your asshole or something. And he could, because you're completely defenseless back there. You know what I mean? I mean, you can clench your butt cheeks as hard as you want, but a dedicated man with a lot of motivation, he's going to get in there.
The victory here shall be swift. Our forces shall take the dam, secure it, then build a road west on the bodies of the NCR.
I left a trail of dead legionaries behind me that says otherwise, bro.
The East will hold. Once across the Colorado, nothing to rival Hoover Dam remains.
Yeah, but check this out, bro. You done wasted almost all of your troops. All those troops that you gathered from the East, fighting your way all the way over to here. You have wasted almost all of your troops, and guess what? You ain't even put a fucking dent in the NCR. Not even a fucking dent. And now you got the rest of the West to worry about, because if you think that they're not going to retaliate, you are out of your fucking mind.
That does not mean we would not succeed.
I might need to know what your definition of success is, because everybody's successful until they fail.
The East was a hard-fought campaign. Even now, Kaiser drew too much of the Legion's blood needed there for this. Hoover Dam is but a place. I will not have it be the gravestone of the Legion, whether quickly, or as you describe, slowly, by attrition.
I'm glad we could come to an understanding.
There is wisdom in your words, man of the West. Know that I shall return east. I shall not remain there forever. On that day, the strength of the bear shall be tested. If the West is one day filled with ones such as you, perhaps it shall be a worthy fight indeed.
Alright, that's great. Now get the fuck off my dam, you Cher reunion tour looking motherfucker.
Get me out of here!
The only thing that's left to do is power up your robots and intimidate the hell out of a 4-star general.
What is this? The free economic zone of New Vegas? What the hell does that mean? Oh, wait, here we go. demands NCR's immediate withdrawal. Withdrawal? Like fucking hell we're withdrawing. We just held the dam. We didn't do it to let it go. This paper of yours isn't fit to wipe my ass. If you think after all that's happened, I'm going to grab my ankles and take it like the Legion.
Alright, you're not gonna believe this, but we were just talking about that. Let me tell you a story about a guy I used to know named Vinny Glitter.